Chapter 251. After lunch. After that, Kang Xia hurriedly left Southgate Town. The magnificent Tang Corporation was in its initial stage, and there were many things that she needed to handle personally. Even when Tan Xiu asked her to rest for a day, she refused. Tan Xiu left the villa and found that his Land Rover SUV had been sent over and was parked on the side of the road outside. After returning to the villa and taking the car key, Tan Xiu then drove to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. The villagers came to Star City to see a doctor. Although he had called to arrange it, he still had to visit them. After all, those people had watched him grow up. Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Tan Xiu parked the car in the parking lot and walked to the inpatient department. On the way, he called Dai Xinyue and asked for the ward number of the 5 injured villagers. Director's office. Li Hongji was reading some documents. Recently, he had been in pain and happiness. The pain was that the hospital was too small and there were too few doctors. There were too few rooms in the inpatient department, but there were too many patients. He was happy because the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was now famous, and even those famous big hospitals in the country were contacting him. If only Tan Xiu could stay in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital forever. Sigh. If he's willing to stay, I'm willing to give him the position of dean. After Li Hongji finished reading the documents, he shook his head with a bitter smile and sighed. Ring, 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 his phone rang, causing him to raise his brows. He grabbed the phone and his eyes lit up when he saw the caller ID. After picking up the call, he said in an extremely amiable tone, Xinyue. Why did you call me? Did your master come to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? Yes. Master went to the inpatient department to visit his fellow villagers. Dai Xinyue's voice came from the phone. Li Hongji's face lit up and he immediately said, I asked you to report the news that he came to the hospital. Did you tell him? I did. Dai Xinyue said. The smile on Li Hongji's face widened. Since Dai Xinyue didn't tell him not to go to Tan Xiu, it meant that Tan Xiu wouldn't mind if he went there. Thinking of this, he immediately said something to Dai Xinyue, hung up the phone, and rushed out of the dean's office. In the ward of the inpatient department, Su Jianda leaned on the sick bed and ate the apple his daughter had peeled. At the same time, he proudly said to the patient who had just been admitted, I know who the divine doctor you're talking about is. I'm not afraid to tell you that not only do I know who he is, I even know where his house is. The patient in the next bed was an old man with a head full of white hair. His son and daughter were beside the bed. Hearing Su Jianda's words, the old man's daughter quickly asked, Do you know his family? Is this for real? It was said that the divine doctor came and went without a trace, and the time he came to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital to give medical services was not fixed. My dad asked the director of the hospital, but even he didn't know when divine Dr. Tang would come to see patients again. Su Jianda said with a smile, I can see that you know the dean, which means you're not ordinary people. Do you know why we're in this ward? It was because Tan Xiu had spoken to the leaders of the hospital. Furthermore, I watched him grow up. That child is sensible and smart. I'm not surprised that he could become a divine doctor. Ha ha ha. Uncle Jianda, I'll be embarrassed if you praise me like this. A voice came from outside the ward, and immediately, Tan Xiu's figure appeared at the door. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Su Jianda and the other villagers of the Su family village immediately looked pleasantly surprised. Su Jianda struggled to get up, but was stopped by Tan Xiu. Uncle Jianda, you're injured, so don't get up. We're family, so you don't need to be polite with me. How are you? How's your injury? Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Su Jianda said excitedly, I'm recovering very well. The doctors said that I only need to stay here for 10 days to half a month before I can be discharged. Tan Xiu, it's really you. Didn't you go back to Qinghe County? How come you're back in Star City? Tan Xiu said with a smile, the matter at home has been dealt with, and the murderer who injured you has bowed his head and admitted his mistake, as well as paid the compensation. Therefore, that matter was considered to be over. I have something to do, so I came back to Star City. Shortly after, Tan Xiu then greeted the other villagers in the room. Although he was now rich and powerful, and was also known as a divine doctor in this hospital, he didn't become arrogant, and his attitude was as modest as ever. On the next bed, the white-haired old man, who was half leaning on the bed, as well as his children, were curiously looking at Tan Xiu. Although they heard that divine Dr. Tang was very young, they didn't expect him to be this young. Seeing that Tan Xiu had finished exchanging greetings with the villagers of the Su family village, the old man said with a smile, "You're really a young hero. I heard that divine Dr. Tang is very young, but the degree of his youth is beyond my expectation. Divine Dr. Tang, it's better to come at the right time than to come early. How about you treat me now?" Tan Xiu looked at the old man with a bit of vigilance in his eyes. Just as he came to the inpatient department, he found a problem. There were at least 20 men in civilian clothes everywhere in the inpatient department, monitoring the stairs and elevators. In the corridor of the ward, there were also several callous men, who should be martial arts experts, who were intentionally or unintentionally observing the ward. Therefore, he had already guessed that this old man's identity was definitely not simple. Furthermore, he felt that this old man was a bit familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him. After a moment of silence, he asked, "What's your illness?" The old man forced a smile and said, "It's asthma for many years. It's been getting more and more serious recently, so my children took me here from the imperial capital when I heard that a divine doctor appeared in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital." "What's your name?" Tan Xiu nodded and asked. "I'm surnamed Tang. We were a family 500 years ago." The old man said with a smile. "Surnamed Tang. The imperial capital?" Tan Xiu frowned. Although Su Lingyun didn't tell him too much about his father, she did reveal a bit that his father was from the imperial capital and also surnamed Tang. However, he secretly shook his head because he didn't believe that there would be such a coincidence in the world. Furthermore, his father, who had no feelings at all, should have nothing to do with them. This family's background was not simple. If he had a relationship with this family, how could he possibly fall in love with his ordinary mother who came from the countryside? Tan Xiu looked at the smile on the old man's face and lightly said, "To tell you the truth, I don't have a good impression of this surnamed Tang. If I could, I really hope that my surname is Su." "Alright, asthma is easy to treat. It's just a problem with your lungs. Wait for your family to bring you to the consultation room. I'll treat you." Knock, knock, the door was knocked. Li Hongji, along with 2 hospital leaders, strode into the ward. When he saw Tan Xiu, he immediately said excitedly, "Tan Xiu, you finally came. You know, I'm really excited and sad now. If you didn't come, I'm afraid I would have gone to your house to find you. Is there something you need from me?" Tan Xiu asked doubtfully. Li Hongji forced a smile and said, "There's something. Of course there's something. Because of you, our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital is now absolutely famous in the country. Many of the patients with difficult and complicated diseases you've cured have been sent to other places in the country. Many outstanding doctors from large hospitals couldn't cure them. Therefore, you're now the most dazzling star in the medical field. Didn't you notice it when you came up? The inpatient department's ward has been full of patients from all over the country. Even the corridors on each floor are temporarily filled with beds. We just bought 50 beds yesterday afternoon, but it's far from enough. Many people are sleeping on the floor in the corridor." Tan Xiu stared blankly and incredulously said, "The fame of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital has really become so big?" Li Hongji forced a smile and said, "It's true." Tan Xiu touched the bridge of his nose and lightly said, "It seems that I have to reduce the number of times I come to the Chinese medical hospital to give medical services. A tall tree attracts the wind. I don't like to be famous." Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at the old man, saying, "So be it. Don't let your children send you to the consultation room. I'll take a look at you here." When you're well, hurry up and leave. Li Hongji looked at the old man as a strange light flashed in his eyes. He quickly said, Senior Chief, since Tan Xiu is willing to treat you, then your asthma can finally be cured. He believed in Tan Xiu because he knew one thing. It was Sun Wenjing's mother, the old lady suffering from the middle stage of liver cancer, who was cured by Tan Xiu. A divine doctor who could even cure a middle-stage liver cancer patient. If he couldn't even cure asthma, then it would simply be a joke. Therefore, he had full confidence in Tan Xiu. Senior Chief. Tan Xiu frowned. Suddenly, a picture flashed in his mind. He immediately understood why he felt that this old man was somewhat familiar. He was a high-ranking and powerful leader of the country, one who was at least ranked in the top 10 in the country. He had seen him on TV when he watched the news broadcast. The old man frowned and said in a low voice, President Li, didn't I tell you not to call me that? Just call me Old Tang. Yes, yes, yes. Li Hongji quickly replied with an obsequious smile. The old man looked at Tan Xiu and said with a smile, Then I'll have to trouble you, Divine Dr. Tang. If there's anything you need to prepare in advance, just tell President Li. Tan Xiu lightly nodded and said, Prepare a basin of warm water and a clean towel. Also, give me some medical alcohol and alcohol cotton. A hospital leader behind Li Hongji immediately said, I'll prepare it at once. Tan Xiu waved his hand at Li Hongji and said, I'll go abroad in a few days. If I finish my business in advance and there's still some time before the start of the semester, I'll come to the hospital to see patients for a few days. If I come back late, I won't come to see patients. I'll come again during the holidays. There are doctors in the hospital who are coming from all over the country, so I'll leave it to them. Li Hongji's face immediately turned bitter after hearing it. The hospital had received so many patients from outside. If Tan Xiu were to quit, he was afraid that he, the president, wouldn't be able to handle it. After all, many of the patients who came because of the reputation had extraordinary backgrounds. Although they couldn't be compared with the one in front of him, some of them were people he couldn't afford to offend. Chapter 252. Li Hongji hesitated for a moment and cautiously asked, Tan Xiu, aren't you going to go abroad for a few days? Could you spare me 2 days before you leave? After all, those patients are very pitiful. They will be very disappointed if they can't see you after traveling thousands of miles. Don't worry, I'll immediately announce to the public that you have to leave for an important matter and won't be coming back to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a short time. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, All right. I have something to do tomorrow. After I'm done, I'll come here to see patients for 2 days. Li Hongji was pleasantly surprised, That's great. I'll immediately notify everyone. Knock, knock, the ward's door was knocked. After everyone in the room looked outside the door, Tang Xiu's expression turned blank as a surprised expression appeared on his face. It was because this person was the manor master of Seaside Strait Manor in Jingmen Island, Tang Dong. The old man on the sickbed had a gloomy expression as he asked in a deep voice, Why are you here? Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Tang Dong also stared blankly for a moment before he nodded to Tan Xiu. He looked at the old man and forced a smile, First uncle, father heard that you're coming to Star City for treatment, so he asked me to come and see. Furthermore, I have an acquaintance in Star City. I brought him a batch of goods and am ready to trade. The old man coldly snorted, Your father still cares about my life and death. That's really rare. All right, since you're here and you've seen it, go and do your business. Tang Dong forced a smile and said, First uncle, even if I want to do my business, I still have to find my acquaintance. I can't do my business if I leave here. The old man angrily shouted, What does it have to do with doing business here? You're not a child anymore, how can you be so frivolous? Don't tell me the person you want to cooperate with is here. Humph. Tang Dong forced a smile and said, First uncle, the person I want to cooperate with is here. The old man stared blankly for a moment before he flew into a rage. At this moment, a trace of a smile was revealed on Tan Xiu's face as he said, Tang Dong, how many goods did you bring this time? Tang Dong stretched out his hand and said with a smile, 5. Where is it? Tan Xiu nodded. Tang Dong said, I've sent someone to send it to the place where the last transaction took place. I wanted to call you after visiting my uncle. I didn't expect to meet you here. What? You also have relatives and friends in the hospital? Tan Xiu pointed to the other 2 villagers in the hospital beds and said, yes, they are injured, so I came to have a look. I didn't expect this old man to be your uncle. Director Li, even if I didn't say anything, I'm afraid that your hospital wouldn't dare to collect his hospitalization fees and treatment fees, right? Li Hongji smiled and said, of course, of course. The old man, who was half sitting on the bed, looked at Tang Dong and Tan Xiu in surprise. He didn't expect that his nephew actually knew Tan Xiu and even had business dealings with Tan Xiu. He curiously asked, Tang Dong, what kind of business are you working with Divine Dr. Tang? Divine Dr. Tang. Tang Dong looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and honestly said, Uncle, you know about our family's manor. Tan Xiu bought the bones of those fierce beasts and other corpses at a high price. I've sold him 4 fierce beasts' bones before. This time, I brought 5 more. The old man was surprised. Divine Dr. Tang, what exactly do you do? Aside from being a doctor in this hospital, you seem to be a student. How come you do business? Tan Xiu lightly said, it's just a small business to earn some money to support my family. You have such a prominent identity, yet you don't know the sufferings of ordinary people like us. The old man was speechless. His surname was Tang, Tang Guosheng. Beside the bed were his children, Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia. At this moment, Tang Yunpeng frowned and said, Divine Dr. Tang, my father may be in a high position, but he still understands the sufferings of the common people. If you don't know my father, I hope you won't speak irresponsibly. Tan Xiu coldly glanced at him and didn't say anything. Tang Guosheng scolded in a low voice, Yunpeng, don't talk nonsense. Although he scolded verbally, he was secretly surprised inside. It was because he knew that Tan Xiu had guessed his identity, yet he didn't have the slightest fear toward him. It was as if he didn't take his identity seriously at all. One must know that if an ordinary person knew his identity, they would be very shocked and would be respectful before him. For example, the president of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Li Hongji. Tang Yunpeng let out a bitter smile after being scolded. He really wanted to educate Tan Xiu, but Tan Xiu was, after all, a divine doctor, and his father's illness still needed his treatment. Therefore, he could only suppress the thought of educating Tan Xiu at the bottom of his heart. Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiu and said with a smile, Divine Dr. Tang, I've let you see a joke. My good-for-nothing children like to talk nonsense, please don't mind them. It's just that I didn't expect you to have such a great ability at such a young age. It's nothing, Tan Xiu said lightly. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's dull expression, Tang Dong quickly said, Tan Xiu, I didn't know that you're a divine doctor. If I had known earlier, I would have asked you to treat my uncle. Tan Xiu said, it's not too late to treat him now. Although his aura is weak, it's not a problem for him to live for 8 to 10 years. After I've cured his asthma, he can live for at least 10 years. That's great. Tang Dong was pleasantly surprised. Suddenly, Tang Dong's complexion changed. His eyes seemed to recall something as he quickly said, Tan Xiu, since you're called a divine doctor, and my uncle came to Star City from thousands of miles away to find you for treatment. Then, can you treat my third brother? If you can cure him, I'll give you all the fierce beast skeletons in my manor for free. I won't ask for a penny. Tang Guosheng, who was lying on the sickbed, and Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia next to the sickbed, were shocked. Their eyes instantly stared at Tan Xiu. All of them for free. Tan Xiu looked at Tang Dong with astonishment. One must know that the price of a fierce beast skeleton was 5 million yuan. Moreover, he still had a long way to go. He actually wanted to give all the skeletons to him. Isn't this price a little too great? What kind of illness does he have? Tang Dong said with a sinking tone. His brain was severely damaged and he has been in a coma for 19 years. The most famous medical expert in the country has determined that he's in a vegetative state. Tan Xiu nodded and said, I'll try it if I have the chance. I've been very busy recently and have no time. Tang Guosheng hurriedly asked, Divine Dr. Tang, you can treat a vegetative state? Tan Xiu said lightly, whether I can treat him or not, I'll tell you after I've treated him. He has been in a coma for 19 years and is still alive. It seems that you have put in a lot of effort. A pained expression flashed in Tang Guosheng's eyes. His wrinkled palms were tightly clenched. After a few seconds of silence, he bitterly said, My youngest son was only 25 years old when he became a vegetative state. Speaking of which, it's quite a coincidence that he was injured in Star City. Star City? Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before his heart suddenly tightened. After a moment of silence, Tan Xiu asked in a deep voice, What's your youngest son's name? Tang Yunda. Tang Guosheng replied with a deep tone. What did you say? Tan Xiu's complexion greatly changed as disbelief burst out from his eyes. Tang Yunda. This familiar and unfamiliar name had been firmly engraved in his mind for 20 years. He had hated the owner of this name countless times in the past 20 years. Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiu with an astonished expression and said, Divine Dr. Tang, why are you? Tan Xiu stared at Tang Guosheng with a cold glint in his eyes as he asked word by word, Tang Guosheng. Living in seclusion in Star City 19 years ago. 25 years old. Someone from the imperial capital. Used to be a soldier. How did you know? Tang Guosheng was surprised. Tan Xiu's complexion turned more unsightly. Suddenly, he turned to look at Li Hongji and shouted, Scram! Get the hell out of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Get the hell out of Star City. I won't treat him even if he dies. What? Li Hongji was stunned. He was dumbfounded as he looked at the furious Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu's eyes were like that of a vicious wolf. His cold eyes swept over Tang Guosheng, Tang Yunpeng, Tang Xia, and Tang Dong. He then turned around and strode outside the room. He ran all the way to the stairs before he stopped. His back leaned against the wall as he gasped for breath. Tang Yunda. He used to hate the owner of this name. He thought that he had grown up and no longer hated him. He even thought that he no longer had any connection with him. But when he suddenly heard his name and saw his father and siblings, the hatred that had been buried in his heart for many years erupted once again. He hated, not for himself, but for his mother, who had raised him all alone. With trembling hands, Tan Xiu took out a cigarette from his pocket. After lighting it up, he took 2 deep puffs and slowly calmed down the anger in his heart. In the ward, the Tang family members were startled by Tan Xiu's reaction. They didn't understand why Tan Xiu suddenly showed such a strong hatred toward them. Tan Xiu's eyes made them think that he saw an unforgettable enemy. What's going on? Tang Guosheng's lips squirmed a few times as he stared at the door in a daze. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. His eyes immediately widened as disbelief burst out from his eyes. He then shouted, Quickly catch up with him. Find him and bring him back. Tang Yunpeng sobered up from his daze and asked with a confused expression, Dad, what's going on? Tang Guosheng didn't seem to hear his son's question. In his mind, he repeatedly recalled the phone call his youngest son made before he became a vegetable. Dad! You're going to be a grandfather. Little Yun is pregnant. It's been more than 3 months. Could it be? Tang Guosheng's old body slightly trembled. He knew that he had a grandson or granddaughter that he had never seen before. 19 years ago, he had sent a large number of people to look for his youngest son's daughter-in-law. He didn't even let him see her before they got married. But he only knew that his youngest son's daughter-in-law was called Little Yun. Therefore, the result of the investigation was naturally not found. He fantasized that his youngest son would wake up one day and learn about his youngest son's daughter-in-law and grandson or granddaughter from his mouth. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Today's first chapter is presented to you. I'm weekly asking for a guaranteed monthly support. Chapter 253. Tang Yunpeng's eyes were full of curiosity as he looked at his father's constantly changing expression. Even Tang Xia and Tang Dong were confused as they didn't understand what was going on. What are you waiting for? Tang Guosheng sobered up from his contemplation and immediately shouted when he saw his children still in the ward. Tang Yunpeng hesitated for a moment before he turned around and walked out of the ward. He waved to a man who seemed to be passing by in the corridor outside, but was actually a plainclothes guard and asked, "A young man just went out of the ward. Where did he go?" The guard pointed to the stairs. There. Tang Yunpeng nodded and strode toward the stairs. When he came to the stairs, he saw Tan Xiu leaning on the wall, smoking a cigarette with a gloomy expression. "Divine Dr. Tang, I want to know the reason." Tan Xiu indifferently looked at Tang Yunpeng and said, "You don't have the qualifications. Even your family's patriarch doesn't have the qualifications." If I remember correctly, Tang Yundo was driven away by his family back then. Then he came to Star City to live alone. Am I right? Tang Yunpeng frowned and asked, "How do you know so much about my brother's situation?" "I don't know much, either." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "But it's enough for me to hate your Tang family. So, don't provoke me. Even if your Tang family is a big family, I can still destroy it if I want to." Tang Yunpeng's brows creased deeper and asked, "You seem to have a deep hostility toward us. Could it be that my Tang family has enmity with you?" "Enmity?" Tan Xiu sneered. "I really want to have enmity with you." "Forget it, I've said what I should say. I can't cure your father's illness. You're on your own now." Having said that, Tan Xiu was about to go downstairs. "Wait." A loud voice came not from Tang Yunpeng's mouth, but from Tang Guosheng, who was being supported by someone. Tan Xiu stopped and coldly looked at Tang Guosheng. Tang Guosheng came in front of Tan Xiu and carefully looked at Tan Xiu's appearance. After a long while, he murmured, "Similar, at least 60% similar. 20 years ago, I sent people to turn the entire Star City upside down, but they still couldn't find my youngest daughter-in-law, the woman named Xiaoyun. Yundo was suddenly injured and became a vegetable. For the past 20 years, I've been waiting for him to wake up and tell me that woman's full name and where she lived when she was already pregnant." "What?" Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia exclaimed in shock. Even Tang Dong's eyes were wide open, his eyes bursting with disbelief. They all knew about this. Back then, they had searched for a very long time. Could it be? The three of them looked at Tan Xiu in unison. Tan Xiu fell silent. He didn't know the truth of that year. If he suddenly disappeared because he was seriously injured and became a vegetable and was brought back to the capital, should she still hate him? Finally, Tan Xiu slowly raised his head and looked at the excited Tang Guosheng. Then, he lightly said, "That's your family's business. It has nothing to do with me. I can help you treat your illness. But I hope that after I've cured you, you'll never appear in Star City again." Tang Guosheng stepped forward and seriously said, "If you were me." Tan Xiu waved his hand to interrupt him and indifferently said, "There's no if. It's just that I heard the name I hate, so my reaction was a bit extreme. Also, I'm 22 years old now, so I should have nothing to do with you. So, I'll go back to the ward and treat you." 22 years old? Tang Guosheng stared blankly as his brows deeply wrinkled. According to Tan Xiu's age, it was impossible for him to be his grandson. However, his previous appearance was too abnormal. Even if he was not his grandson, it was likely that he was related to his youngest daughter-in-law. "Tan Xiu, you know my youngest son's situation. His behavior is also abnormal. So I'm sure you know something. Tell me, my Tang family will definitely reward you." While walking toward the ward, Tan Xiu indifferently said, "I don't care about your Tang family's reward. What you should be thinking about now is not the messy things, but your asthma. If you want me to treat you, then don't talk nonsense. If you don't want me to treat you, then don't occupy the latrine pit and go back to the imperial capital. Tang Guisheng's expression was complicated. As a shrewd old man, he was more and more sure that Tan Xiu must know a lot about his youngest son and daughter-in-law. However, Tan Xiu's obviously hostile attitude made him feel that he couldn't be too hasty. Tang Dong and Tang Xia's eyes flickered with a strange light, but they didn't utter a word. Tang Yunpeng, on the other hand, frowned and said in a deep voice, "Tan Xiu, pay attention to your attitude." Tan Xiu snorted coldly, "You think my attitude is not good enough? If it's not good enough, then fuck off." Anger rose inside Tang Yunpeng's heart. He had a prominent status and was now a high-ranking official. It had been many years since anyone dared to speak to him with such an attitude. Furthermore, his father's status was even more distinguished. He was one of the few senior figures in the country. But now, he was humiliated by a young man in his 20s, which made him want to do something about it. Tang Guisheng raised his hand to stop Tang Yunpeng and glared at him. Then, he looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Divine Dr. Tang, then I'll have to trouble you." Back to the ward. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's return, Su Jianda quickly asked, "Are you all right, Tan Xiu?" Tan Xiu squeezed out a smile and shook his head, "I'm fine, Uncle Jianda." Only then did Su Jianda feel relieved. He was a countryman through and through, and his family members were all born and raised farmers. Although they felt that Tang Guisheng looked familiar before, only now did they suddenly realize that they had seen him on TV. He was a high-ranking leader in the country. He was kind-hearted and wanted to persuade Tan Xiu not to offend such a big shot. But he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Tan Xiu pointed to the end of the bed and said in a deep voice, "Take off your coat and lie down. Face the ground." Tang Guisheng followed Tan Xiu's instruction and lay down at the end of the bed. Although he didn't know how Tan Xiu would treat him, Tan Xiu's reputation as a divine doctor was undeniable. Tan Xiu's fingers pressed on Tang Guisheng's Tanzhong acupoint and rubbed it for half a minute. Then, he took the alcohol and alcohol cotton from Li Hongji and rubbed it over and over again. His fingers then pressed on Tang Guisheng's Feishu acupoint. Asthma was also known as bronchial asthma. It was a chronic airway inflammation caused by a variety of cells and cellular components. If the condition worsened, it would lead to pneumonia. Chronic airway inflammation was often accompanied by increased airway responsiveness, leading to repeated episodes of wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing. To cure it, on the one hand, the bronchial airway obstruction had to be treated, and on the other hand, the lung inflammation had to be relieved. Tang Xiu actually had a more effective treatment plan, but Tang Guisheng was, after all, old and not suitable for such an extreme but extremely effective treatment plan. Therefore, Tan Xiu could only choose a mild and less effective treatment method. However, even though this method was very peaceful, it was enough to make the surrounding people tremble in fear. As Tan Xiu handed the alcohol and alcohol cotton to Li Hongji, he moved his other hand away from Tang Guisheng's Feishu acupoint. As the astral power in his body flowed into his arm and spread out in his palm, Tan Xiu began to pat Tang Guisheng's back repeatedly. Every hit, astral power was slapped into Tang Guisheng's body and then controlled to flow into his organs. Astral power gradually flowed into his lungs and trachea. Cough, 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 the violent coughing made Tang Guisheng's body tremble. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was flushed. Even the blue veins on his forehead were bulging. Everyone at the side was scared witless, especially those from the Tangs. They all had the same thought: Tang Xiu wouldn't take the opportunity to retaliate while he was treating the old patriarch and make the old patriarch suffer, right? About 10 minutes later. As Tang Guisheng stopped coughing, Tan Xiu slowly withdrew his hands and washed them in warm water. Then, he said lightly, "Let the old doctors of Chinese medicine hospital prescribe you some Chinese medicine to nourish your qi and moisten your lungs for 3 to 5 days. Presently, he's fine now. Let him leave the hospital. There are not enough wards in the hospital." don't delay others. This, Li Hongji was a bit hesitant. At this time, Tang Guosheng slowly got up from the sickbed and sat there, stroking his chest. There was a hint of excitement on his aged face. He could clearly feel that his breathing, which was originally difficult to breathe, was exceptionally smooth now. Even his mind was much clearer. What made him most satisfied was the comfort all over his body. It was as if he had suddenly returned to a decade ago. His body felt much more relaxed. Leave the hospital. Immediately go through the discharge procedures. At this moment, Tang Guosheng's voice was much stronger than before. Li Hongji didn't dare to offend Tan Xiu, nor did he dare to offend Tang Guosheng. Now that Tang Guosheng had compromised, he immediately felt relieved. However, when he looked at Tan Xiu again, the expression in his eyes was completely different from before. There was even a bit of admiration hidden in the deepest part of his eyes. Who was Tang Guosheng? He was a senior statesman at the national level. His status was so honorable that it surpassed hundreds of millions of people. And Tan Xiu. He actually dared to treat him with such an attitude. Li Hongji even somewhat worshipped him. After Tan Xiu cured Tang Guosheng, he didn't stay in the Chinese medicine hospital for a long time. He only had one thought now, and that was to immediately rush to his hometown in Qinghe County to see his mother. In the past, his mother didn't want to tell him, and he didn't want to make things difficult for her. But now, it was different. Since that person was still alive and had become a vegetable, he must let his mother know no matter what. As for whatever his mother chose, he would respect it. On the way back, Tan Xiu called Su Ben and Su Quan again. After learning that they had yet to leave for Star City, Tan Xiu immediately told them to wait for him in the Su family village. 2 hours later, Tan Xiu drove back to the Su family village. Just as he parked the car outside his grandmother's courtyard, Su Ben and Su Quan came out from the neighboring courtyard. Tan Xiu. Su Quan called out. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "You wait for me outside. I have something important to discuss with my mother. I'll talk to you after we've discussed it." All right. Su Ben and Su Quan nodded at the same time. Chapter 254. Star City, Long's Dining Hall. In the luxurious presidential suite, Tang Guosheng was sitting on the sofa in the living room. He had quit smoking for more than 10 years, but now, he lit a cigarette. Even if his children tried to stop him, he couldn't extinguish it. His old face was deeply wrinkled, and his eyes swept over the mobile phone on the coffee table in front of him from time to time. Wait. He was waiting for the information. This was the order he issued after leaving Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Ring, 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 the ringtone of the mobile phone finally sounded in Tang Guosheng's expectation. Speak. Tang Guosheng extinguished his cigarette and picked up the phone, speaking with an extremely serious tone. A voice came from the phone. "Chief, Tan Xiu's information has been investigated. He's 20 years old this year and has excellent grades. This year, he won the Shuangqing Province Science Prize. His hometown is the Su family village in Qinghe County. He has no father and was raised by his mother, Su Lingyun. He has a grandmother in his hometown." When Tang Guosheng heard that Tan Xiu was 20 years old, he suddenly stood up. But when he heard the name, Su Lingyun, his old body couldn't help but tremble. He was sure Tan Xiu was his grandson. His age matched. Single parent, only mother, matched. Su Lingyun, and the last word was Little Yun, which matched his youngest son's description. Tang Guosheng didn't believe that so many coincidences were purely coincidental. After listening to the report, after a long while, he slowly sat back on the sofa. His eyes were a bit moist and complicated. He understood Tan Xiu's anger and Tan Xiu's hatred. His youngest son's matter happened too suddenly that he didn't have time to explain to Su Lingyun. But he didn't understand why Su Lingyun didn't go to the imperial capital to find the Tang family for so many years. Didn't she know that she had given birth to a grandson of the Tang family and was already their daughter-in-law? Tang Yunpeng stood at the side and looked at his father's complicated expression. After hesitating for a long time, he finally couldn't help but ask, "Dad, what's the result?" Tang Guosheng slowly raised his head and looked at his children and nephew in front of him. He nodded and said, "That's right. Tan Xiu is really your brother's son, my grandson." Tang Yunpeng quickly said, "But his age," Tang Guosheng said, "that's an excuse of not wanting to recognize us." His real age was 20 years old, and he only had one mother, Su Lingyun, and no father. He grew up in his grandmother's house in the countryside. In an instant, Tang Yunpeng, Tang Xia, and Tang Dong immediately understood. "Dad, we can't ignore him since he's a descendant of our Tang family," said Tang Yunpeng in a deep voice. "Whether he's willing or not, he has to return to the imperial capital with us and kowtow in front of the ancestral shrine. Moreover, his medical skills are extremely amazing. He can even cure your asthma for so many years. Perhaps he really has the confidence to save Yunda from his coma." Tang Guosheng bitterly shook his head and sighed, "It's a must. However, this process would probably be very difficult. You've also seen the hatred he showed after he confirmed our identity in his heart. The hatred that has been accumulating for 20 years won't disappear in a short period of time. Besides, our Tang family really doesn't have the qualifications to ask anything from him. Not to mention that he cured my asthma, he and his mother have been living a lonely and destitute life for so many years. I believe they have suffered a lot and suffered a lot." Tang Xia pondered for a moment and asked, "Dad, what's your decision?" Tang Guosheng said in a deep voice, "I'll go to Qinghe County myself. I'll go now and arrange a car for me." "I'll go too. I'll go too." Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia called out in unison. Tang Dong opened his mouth, but he was afraid that his uncle would reprimand him, so he held back. Tang Guosheng shook his head and said, "Xiao Xiao will go with me. Yunpeng, our Tang family has been in a very unstable stage because of my illness. You must return to the imperial capital to help your third uncle stabilize the situation. Also, settle Xiaodong's matter as soon as possible. Even if we have to exchange some benefits with the other party, we must let her take that position. This will be helpful for our Tang family's escape route in advance." "This, all right." Tang Yunpeng hesitated for a moment before he reluctantly agreed. Qinghe County, Su Family Village. Tan Xiu entered his grandmother's courtyard and saw his mother washing his grandmother's bedding, while Su Xiangfei was helping to dry the clean clothes. "Huh? Xiu, didn't you say you won't come back for the time being? Why?" Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Su Lingyun suddenly looked surprised and got up to ask. Tan Xiu looked at Su Xiangfei, and then spoke to Su Lingyun, "Mom, I have a very important matter to discuss with you. Let's find a quiet place." "What important matter?" Su Lingyun was confused. Tan Xiu walked toward the side room where he lived and said, "Mom, you'll know after you come with me. But you have to be mentally prepared. No matter what you hear, don't get excited." Su Lingyun couldn't help laughing and said, "You're still pretending to be mysterious, child." "Okay, I promise I won't get excited." In the side room, Tan Xiu closed the door from the inside and released his divine sense. He found that Su Xiangfei didn't follow to eavesdrop, but sat at the place where his mother had just sat and continued to wash the bedding. He nodded secretly. He turned to look at Su Lingyun and said, "Mom, I met some people today." Su Lingyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you need to report to me when you meet some people? By the way, are those top universities in the country throwing olive branches to you, the top scorer of science in Shuangqing province? I heard that every year, the top scorer of the college entrance examination in each province will have countless universities scrambling to recruit him." Tan Xiu said with a serious face, "Mom, I didn't meet those people from those top universities. They are all surnamed Tang." Su Lingyun stared blankly for a moment before her expression greatly changed. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, there's an old man named Tang Guosheng, his eldest son Tang Yunpeng, his daughter Tang Xia, and his nephew Tang Dong. They're from the imperial capital, the Tang family. Su Lingyun's body swayed. If she hadn't quickly held the wall, she would have fallen to the ground. Her expression became extremely gloomy, and her eyes flickered with fear. Tan Xiu held her arm and let her sit on the edge of the bed. Then, he continued, Mom, I think it's necessary for you to tell me something. Of course, there are still many things I haven't told you, such as, news about him. News about him? Su Lingyun's pupils violently contracted as disbelief burst out from her eyes. He's still alive. Tan Xiu didn't speak again. He knew that his mother needed time to digest what he said. After a long while, Su Lingyun looked a bit perturbed and expectant as she asked in a low voice, where is he? The imperial capital, Tan Xiu said lightly. Su Lingyun's face was filled with a deep sense of loss and tears were rolling in her eyes. She bit her lower lip and murmured, he's not dead. Why didn't he come to us? He clearly knew that I was pregnant with. Tan Xiu interrupted her and said, he's been in a coma for 20 years. He's in a vegetative state. What? Su Lingyun was shocked by Tan Xiu's words. She looked at Tan Xiu with a dull expression as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. 20 years? In a vegetative state? In an instant. Tears burst out from Su Lingyun's eyes. A deep sense of regret arose in her heart. She regretted that she didn't go to the imperial capital that year. She knew that his home was there, yet she didn't go to find him. Tan Xiu gently hugged Su Lingyun and patted her back, saying, Mom, I've always known that you're a strong woman since I was a child. You may look soft on the surface, but you have a strong heart. Don't cry. Tell me what happened that year. After crying for a while, Su Lingyun raised her tearful face and said bitterly, that year, his comrade in arms called him out and told me that he's going out for a drink. I didn't take it seriously at that time and waited. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He has disappeared, and there is no news of him. I called the police, but there was no result. I believed that he wouldn't abandon us, mother and son, so I thought he was dead. He died in a place I would never be able to find. Later on, I was taken back to my hometown by Su Shangguan and gave birth to you. After giving birth to you, I didn't give up and wanted to go to the Tang family in the imperial capital to find him. But I didn't dare to go. I was afraid. Are you afraid that I'll be taken away by the Tang family? Tan Xiu secretly sighed inside. Su Lingyun nodded without a word and cried, the Tang family is a big family in the imperial capital, with great power and influence. If they knew that I have Tang Yunda's son and that you have the Tang family's bloodline, I'm afraid they would take you away. I've lost my husband, so I can't lose my son. Have you ever thought about going to the imperial capital all these years? Asked Tan Xiu. Xiu, do you still remember when you were in junior high school? Su Lingyun said bitterly. Every year, I told you to go to my relative's house in the neighboring city. In fact, I didn't go to my relative's house in the neighboring city. I just relied on the little money I usually saved to go to the imperial capital to inquire about your father's news. I went there every year for more than a decade. I even went to the Tang family's old residence in the imperial capital hundreds of times. I hid far away and secretly observed them. But I've never heard anyone mention your father, and I've never seen him even once. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said with all seriousness, Mom, I think you're doing the right thing. Growing up with you, I can feel happiness and maternal love. But what? Su Lingyun finally stopped crying and asked. But what are you going to do? Asked Tan Xiu. I'm going to find your father. Su Lingyun said without hesitation. I believe him. He must have his own difficulties as long as he's not dead. He has been in a coma for 20 years and has been lying on a cold bed without me around to take care of him. So, I'll accompany and take care of him for the rest of my life as long as he's alive. Chapter 255. I respect your choice, Mom, said Tang Xiu calmly. I'll recognize my father. But you know very well that I don't have feelings for anyone in the Tang family. As for the Tang family, I have no feelings for them. My family is here, and my roots are also here. Su Lingyun was silent for a long time before she nodded silently. Then, when are you going to see him? Asked Tan Xiu again. Su Lingyun suddenly seemed to realize something. Her hands instantly grabbed Tan Xiu's arms and asked nervously, Xiu, Mom knows that you have medical skills, and I heard that you're very good at it. Can you cure your father? I don't know his specific situation, so I don't dare to jump to a conclusion. Tan Xiu shook his head. A look of disappointment flashed in Su Lingyun's eyes, but she still nodded and said, Xiu, Xiang Fei will take care of your grandmother at home. Let's go to the imperial capital now. It has been 20 years. After learning that her husband was still alive, Su Lingyun wished that she could immediately grow wings and fly to the imperial capital to see him. She would feel tormented if she delayed for even a minute. Tan Xiu shook his head and slowly said, Mom, I think we should wait for a while. I think someone will invite us to the imperial capital. Who will invite us? Su Lingyun stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. The Tang family, answered Tan Xiu. Su Lingyun's expression changed. She had been wary of the Tang family for the past 20 years. She was afraid that her son would be taken away by them, and she was afraid that her son would no longer be close to her in the future. However, she was not afraid now. Her son had grown up, and the relationship between her and her son was not something that could be taken away by fame and fortune. Xiu, why are you so sure that the Tang family will invite us? Tan Xiu lightly said, They want me to return to the Tang family, Mom. They want me to save him. Su Lingyun pondered for a moment and said slowly, Xiu, you have the blood of the Tang family flowing in your veins after all. It's only right for you to acknowledge your ancestors and return to the clan. Tan Xiu sneered, Why? Just because you have the blood of the Tang family flowing in your veins? If possible, I would rather have the blood of the Su family flowing in my veins. Mom, in my eyes, they are all strangers. I've never been willing to pay attention to strangers. So, I respect your choice, and I hope you can respect mine as well. Su Lingyun opened her mouth, but found that she had no way to refute her son. In the end, she could only nod helplessly and give the choice to Tan Xiu. Xiu, you go out first. I wanted to be alone for a while. If the Tang family doesn't come today, then we'll go to the imperial capital tomorrow. Su Lingyun said. Tan Xiu nodded and walked out of the room. He saw Su Xiangfei washing the bedding in the courtyard. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he walked toward him. He took out a half-pack of cigarettes from his pocket and handed one to him. Then, he lit one for himself. After taking a deep puff, Tan Xiu leaned on the tree beside Su Xiangfei and calmly said, Can you tell me how did you figure it out? Su Xiangfei squeezed the cigarette with his wet hand and forced a smile. Actually, I didn't figure it out myself. It was my father who made me figure it out. Good will be rewarded, and evil will be punished. Some people will inevitably take responsibility for what they have done in the past. Seeing my father and mother in jail now, it's as if I can see what they have done to you. If the police weren't powerful enough, I'm afraid you would be the one in jail now. That's all. Tan Xiu calmly asked. Su Xiangfei shook his head and said, Actually, I still had some resentment in my heart before I came back. After all, you're too ruthless. You destroyed my family and also ruined the rest of my father's life. But after eavesdropping on my aunt's conversation with you, I realized that my resentment was so ridiculous. The real kind-hearted person is my aunt. Tan Xiu nodded. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Study for another year. Then take the college entrance test next year. You don't need to worry about your life. My mother won't leave you alone. Su Xiangfei suddenly smiled. His smile was particularly bright. He shook his head and said, with my grades, I'm afraid I can only enter an ordinary university after another year of high school. It's impossible for me to enter a key university. I've already thought about it. After Grandma's injury is healed, I'll leave Qinghe County and go outside with my own ability. No matter what, I'll return to my roots in the future and return to the Su family village. Tan Xiu said, take down my cell phone number. But I hope you can contact me only when you're forced to. Su Xiangfei nodded without a word. Tan Xiu didn't speak again. After smoking a cigarette, he walked toward the outside of the courtyard. Tan Xiu. Upon seeing Tan Xiu coming out, Su Ben and Su Quan quickly called out. Tan Xiu said, stay at home for a few more days. I can't go back to Star City for the time being. I have to go to the imperial capital to solve some things. I'll contact you again when I return to Star City from the imperial capital. Su Quan said with a smile, that's great. Brother Ben and I originally planned to go to Star City a few days later. It's because we want to get some of the silver dragon grass you need. Tan Xiu quickly said, I advise you not to go. Even if you go, you must call more people, and you can only search in the periphery of the back mountain. That fierce beast you said is very dangerous. Ordinary people simply can't bring harm to it. Furthermore, it's very likely that they will die on the mountain. Su Ben knew Tan Xiu's character. Seeing that he was so serious, Su Ben immediately said, then we'll listen to you and call more people to go up the mountain. No matter how many silver dragon grasses we can find, we won't go deep into the mountain. Tan Xiu nodded and said, it's good to remember that. I'll try to come back before the end of the summer vacation. I'll go to the back mountain to solve that fierce beast. Alright, you two go busy yourselves. Wait for my call. Alright. Su Ben and Su Quan replied and then walked towards Su Ben's house next door. 2 hours later. 2 black Audi cars slowly stopped outside the courtyard gate. As the 4 guards in civilian clothes dispersed, Tang Xia opened the car's door and helped Tang Guosheng out. Is this the place? Tang Guosheng looked at the dilapidated wooden door and the broken courtyard wall. Tang Xia nodded and said, Dad, according to the information sent to me, it's this place. I used the GPS to locate it. It's this house. Tang Guosheng looked at the 4 guards and said in a deep voice, you stay outside. No matter what happens, don't step into this courtyard. Understood. The 4 guards immediately saluted and complied. Tang Guosheng strode into the courtyard. When he saw Su Xiangfei in the courtyard, a surprised expression flashed in his eyes as he immediately asked, young man, do Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu live here? Su Xiangfei got up from the chair and asked, yes, who are you? Tang Guosheng nodded and said, I'm Tang Guosheng. Are they here now? Su Xiangfei turned his head and shouted, Auntie, someone is looking for you. Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu came out of the house. When Tan Xiu saw Tang Guosheng and Tang Xia, he secretly sighed inwardly. Although he had guessed that they would come back, he didn't expect that they would come so fast. He was afraid that after he left Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Tang Guosheng had sent someone to investigate his information. What are you doing here? I told you that we have nothing to do with your Tang family, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Tang Guosheng bitterly said, Xiu, I'm Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment before he helplessly said, Tan Xiu, this is your mother, and also my youngest daughter-in-law, right? Su Lingyun was stunned. Although she heard from her son that someone from the Tang family would come, she never thought that it would be Tang Guosheng. She knew Tang Guosheng. He was not only the country's top official, but also her husband's father, her father-in-law in name. I'm Su Lingyun. Tang Guosheng came to the front of Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu and bitterly said, 20 years ago, I sent people to turn the entire Star City upside down, but unfortunately, I couldn't find you and your mother. Yunda only told me that you're called Little Yun, but I don't know your full name. I didn't have any information about you, so I personally went to Star City 20 years ago to pick you up, but I couldn't find you. I've let you and your mother suffer all these years. Upon hearing this, Su Lingyun's tears welled up in her eyes again. Tang Xia came to Su Lingyun's side and said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, why don't you call him Dad?" Su Lingyun opened her mouth, but her voice was stuck in her throat. She knew why her husband came to Star City alone in the past. It was because he was driven out by his family. At that time, she left the countryside and worked as a nurse in a hospital in Star City. At that time, she met Tang Yunda, who was injured and hospitalized without anyone to take care of him. The two slowly developed feelings for each other and came together. Later on, after she got pregnant, Su Lingyun, who didn't even get a marriage certificate, learned his true identity from her husband. She also knew that the Tang family was in a huge crisis at that time, so Tang Guisheng was forced to drive her husband out of the family and announced to the public that they had severed their relationship as father and son. At first, her husband was angry and didn't have any contact with his family. It wasn't until she got pregnant that her husband called Tang Guisheng full of excitement and happiness. She had seen this father-in-law on TV, but it was the first time she saw him in person. So, she couldn't call him. Tang Guisheng forced a smile and said, "Little Yun, I know it's really difficult for you to call me father-in-law now. However, you're my son's daughter-in-law and have given birth to the Tang family's blood. I won't force you if you don't want to recognize me now. I just hope that I can compensate you and your mother in the future." Su Lingyun raised her head and looked at Tang Guisheng, saying, "I want to see Yunda." Tang Guisheng said without hesitation, "The reason I came here this time is to take you and your son to the imperial capital. Before coming here, I know that your mother is also injured. If you want, you can also take her with you." Su Lingyun turned to look at Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu calmly said, "My mother wants to go to the imperial capital to see him. Our family is here, not the imperial capital. If possible, I hope you can let us take him back. We're a family in the truest sense, and the Tang family is just an outsider." This chapter is for Sect Master Little Pocket. There will be a regular update at 5 p.m. Chapter 256. Tang Guisheng calmly looked at Tan Xiu with eyes sparkling with wisdom. He had experienced countless storms and waves in his life and had a very high attainment in distinguishing people. After a short contact, he was able to figure out Tan Xiu's character. Therefore, Tang Guisheng didn't get angry at Tan Xiu's words. Certainly, he would have been furious if someone else dared to speak to him with such an attitude. But he owed too much to Tan Xiu. "Tan Xiu, if you can cure your father, he's free to go wherever he wants. If you can't cure him and still insist on bringing him back to Star City, I'll agree. However, I have a condition. Star City's medical facilities can't be compared to the imperial capital's, so I need to send a professional nurse to take care of him after bringing him here. As for your remarks just now, I understand the resentment in your heart. It's indeed my fault for not being able to find you and your son that year, causing you to suffer and suffer all these years. But you're surnamed Tang and have the Tang family's blood flowing in your veins. The Tang family is your home." Tan Xiu snorted coldly and didn't speak anymore. Tang Xia looked at Tan Xiu before her eyes finally fell on Su Lingyun. She then said with a smile, "Second sister-in-law, you should have gone to the imperial capital that year. I believe that my second brother has told you about our family's situation. Although the Tang family is a big family, the elders don't interfere too much with the children's marriage, nor do they have any sectarian bias. Dad really came to Star City in person and stayed here for a few days. Even Big Brother took some time to come to Star City every year to look for you after second brother was in a coma." After saying that, Tang Xia walked 2 steps towards Su Lingyun and pulled her hand. After the smile disappeared, a bit of bitterness was revealed on her face as she said, "Second sister-in-law, do you know what Mom's biggest thought these years? It's her grandson who has been living outside. Every time someone mentions second brother, she always washes her face with tears. She loves her son dearly and misses her grandson. Su Lingyun's heart trembled. A wave of warmth came from the bottom of her heart, causing her resentment towards the Tang family to lessen a lot. She had originally thought that she was the only one who had been searching for her husband all these years. She never imagined that the Tang family would also be searching for her and her son. Tang Xia said again, "Second sister-in-law, come back to the capital with us. That is our home. If you don't want to live with your parents in the old house in Suzhou City, I can buy you a villa. If my nephew is willing to study, he can go to the Imperial Capital University. I am willing to take care of all your daily needs." Su Lingyun opened her mouth and looked at Tan Xiu. There was still a hint of pleading in his eyes. "I'm sorry, we're not used to living in the imperial capital," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Also, we don't need a single cent from the Tang family. Although my wealth can't compare to the Tang family's, it's enough for me and my mother to live a wealthy life." Su Lingyun then said, "Yes. We have a good life here. Xiu has grown up and has the ability. My restaurant business is also very good, so I really can't live in the imperial capital for a long time." "Xiaoyun, Tan Xiu, I'll agree with you no matter where you and your son want to live," said Tang Guisheng in a deep voice. "Don't hesitate to tell me if you have any needs. As long as it's within my means, I'll do it for you even if the Tang family's vitality is greatly damaged. Do remember that the Tang family owes you and your son, and I'll make it up to you in the future." Tan Xiu was shaken inwardly and disbelief flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that Tang Guisheng would make such a big promise. At this moment, the door to his heart that had been sealed cracked open slightly. But he still couldn't get close to the Tang family right now. "Bring the things inside." Tang Xia called toward the courtyard's entrance. Then, she turned her head and said to Su Lingyun with a smile, "Second sister-in-law, Dad heard that your mother was injured, so he specially sent someone to buy some nutritious products. Furthermore, this is the first time you visit your family, so you can't be lacking in etiquette. As for those who injured your mother, except for the vice president of the county hospital who went missing, the rest will immediately receive their due punishment." Immediately, the 4 guards outside the courtyard's entrance quickly carried more than a dozen boxes and came to the front of everyone. This, Su Lingyun was somewhat at a loss. Tan Xiu lightly said, "Mom, since they have good intentions, we'll accept them. Also, you can't slap a smiling face. Since they didn't come to look for trouble, we can't neglect them. Please invite them inside the house." Only then did Su Lingyun wake up and quickly said, "You're too polite. Please enter the house. Mom is inside." After a while, Tang Guisheng and Tang Xia saw Mrs. Zhang. When Mrs. Zhang learned about their identities, she first cursed them. Then, after learning the whole story of the matter, she looked a bit gratified. She felt happy for her daughter and excited that her son-in-law was still alive. "Xiu, Grandma knows that your medical skills are excellent. You must cure your father. He has been missing for so many years because of a special reason. Don't blame him anymore. Let's go to the imperial capital. Cure him so that Grandma can see my son-in-law in her lifetime." After learning about the situation, Mrs. Zhang called Tan Xiu to the bedside and exhorted him. "I'll try my best." Tan Xiu nodded and said. 10 minutes later, Su Lingyun packed her things and left the courtyard. "You drive and lead the way. My mom will ride in my car." Tan Xiu put the suitcase in the trunk and looked at Tang Guisheng and the others. Tang Xia quickly said, "I'll also ride in your car and chat with second sister-in-law on the way." Su Lingyun revealed a smile and said, "Okay." Tan Xiu didn't stop her. Generally, he wouldn't stop Su Lingyun's decision. After getting on the car, he saw Tang Xia holding his mother's arm intimately and chatting in the back seat. Then, he started the car and followed the 2 black Audi cars in front, quickly leaving the Su family village. Although he just got his driver's license, he followed the 2 cars on the highway and headed north. The imperial capital. Mingyuan Villa Complex. The Tang family's third son, Tang Guosho, was reading the information in his hand. In front of him, there were two middle-aged men in military uniforms, standing ramrod straight. On their shoulders, there were general stars, the rank of Major General. Bam! The door was forcefully pushed open as Tang Guosho's son, Tang Yunqing, rushed into the room and shouted, "Dad, it's a big event." Tang Guosho frowned and coldly snorted, "Even if the sky falls down, you must remain calm and steady like Mount Tai. Look at yourself, what kind of decency is this?" Tang Yunqing hurriedly said, "No, it's really a big event. First uncle and the others are on the way back to the imperial capital. I just received a call from Big Brother. He wants us to rush to the ancestral house in 4 hours." Tang Guosho was surprised and said, "You need to rush to the ancestral house?" Yunpeng didn't say what happened. Tang Yunqing said, "Second brother's son has been found. He has brought them back to the imperial capital. Moreover, the most important thing is that first uncle is secretly going to Star City to find the divine doctor surnamed Tang. It's second brother's son, Tan Xiu." "What?" Tang Guosho's complexion changed and his eyes burst with a bright light. He didn't expect that his nephew's flesh and blood would actually be found. All these years, what the old lady had been thinking about the most was the grandson who was wandering outside, his life and death unknown. "That's great. Yunqing, immediately inform the others to rush to our family's ancestral house in 4 hours. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. My grandson that I've never seen before is actually a divine doctor. If he can cure Yinda's illness." Thinking up to there, the excitement on Tang Guosho's face turned more intense. Tang Yunqing quickly said, "Dad, I'll immediately inform everyone." Imperial Capital, Imperial Dragon Club. Tang Wei was holding a crystal bottle and tasting red wine. Beside him were two young men, each with an enchanting woman in their arms, drinking and having fun. The two young men were called Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongnian. Both of them were from the capital's aristocratic families and were also Tang Wei's childhood friends. Bam! The door of the luxury box was kicked open from the outside. A cute girl in a one-piece dress rushed into the private room. When she saw Tang Wei sitting on the sofa accompanied by two enchanting girls, her complexion suddenly changed. She dashed to the front of Tang Wei. Under everyone's surprised eyes, she grabbed Tang Wei's arm and hurriedly said, "Big brother, don't seek pleasure here anymore. Grandpa said that all the family members must return to the ancestral house. Something big has happened." Tang Wei rolled his eyes and was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he said, Tang, even if the sky falls, there's still a tall one to hold it up. What's the rush? Besides, didn't Grandpa go out of town? What could have happened? Also, how did you know I was here?" Tang pulled Tang Wei out of the box in one breath and quickly said, "Don't worry about how I know. Just follow me. It's second uncle. Second uncle's son has been found. He's now on the way back to the imperial capital with Grandpa. Hurry up. If we go back late, Grandpa will be angry if he finds out that we're not in the ancestral house." Second uncle's son. Tang Wei stared blankly for a moment before his expression suddenly changed. He broke free from Tang's hand and returned to the box's entrance. He looked at Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongnian who were about to come out and said, "You should have heard it, right? I have an urgent matter to deal with and need to go home. You can have fun first. I'll look for you again when I have time." Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongnian looked at each other in dismay, but they still nodded. They knew that Tang Wei's second uncle had become a vegetable due to an accident 20 years ago. They didn't expect that he actually had a son outside. "Brother Tang, hurry up and go." Imperial Capital, at a military base. In the olive green military camp, Tang Ning, the commander of a special forces company, was supervising the soldiers' training at the shooting range. At this moment, a young man in military uniform ran to his side and handed over a mobile phone, saying, "Company commander, there's a call for you." Tang Ning took the phone with an expressionless face and said in a deep voice, Tang Ning speaking. Return to the family's ancestral house. Now. Tang Yinqing's voice came out of the phone. Tang Ning frowned and said, Fourth uncle, I'm training my men. What's the matter? Can't we talk on the phone? Your second uncle's son has been found. The old man is taking him from Star City to the imperial capital. What? I'll go back immediately. Chapter 257. Imperial Capital, Splendid Embroidery House. Tang Ying stood in front of a spacious desk, looking at the landscape painting spread on the table in front of her. Her eyes flickered with shock. At her side, Mu Weining faintly smiled and said, I didn't have much hope for that Tan Xiu at first. The reason why I promised him was that I didn't want to agree to that hooligan's request. Who would have thought that Tan Xiu turned out to be so amazing? It was a blessing in disguise for me to get such a peerless painting. Tang Ying exclaimed with deep envy, I've seen countless master-level paintings, and I've even admired many peerless ancient paintings. However, none of them can compare to this painting. If there's a chance, I'll definitely ask him to paint one for me. He said that he won't paint easily. Mu Weining chuckled. Besides, I can feel that he's not too keen on painting even though his painting skills are godly. You know him, don't you? Said Tang Ying. Help me put in a good word when the time comes. Mu Weining forced a smile and said, It'd be great if I could put in a good word. Tan Xiu's character is very strange. Very strange? How so? Asked Tang Ying in surprise. Mu Weining raised her slender jade-like hand and gently brushed the hair on her forehead. She pretended to reveal a flirtatious posture and smilingly asked, Do you think I'm beautiful? Tang Ying was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. Beautiful. Of course, you're beautiful. Who doesn't know that you're the first beauty in the imperial capital? Who among the young talents in the imperial capital doesn't want to get close to you and embrace a beauty? I dare say that there's no man in the world who doesn't want you as long as they have a normal sexual orientation. But Tan Xiu doesn't want that, said Mu Weining with a smile. What? Tang Ying stared blankly for a moment before shaking her head and saying, I don't believe it. Unless he's not a man, he'll never turn a blind eye to you. I've tested him, and his words are very direct, said Mu Weining. Do you know what he said to me? What did he say? Asked Tang Ying curiously. At that time, I asked him if there was something wrong with his sexual orientation, said Mu Weining with a smile. Or is my beauty not attractive to you at all? As a result, he told me that his sexual orientation was normal, and that if I was willing to sleep with him, he would not refuse. However, when he said that it was a one-night stand without any emotional foundation, it was actually very meaningless. In addition, there is another kind of woman that he is too lazy to touch. Tang Ying widened her eyes as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. However, Mu Weining's words still deeply attracted her. She couldn't wait to know what kind of woman he was too lazy to touch. Mu Weining continued, the kind of woman he's too lazy to touch is a virgin like me. He said that because it was his first time, it would be very troublesome in the future. He's not afraid of anything but trouble. Pfft, Tang Ying couldn't help but laugh out loud. He is indeed strange and eccentric. This is probably the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard in my life. Nowadays, which man didn't like women to give their bodies to them? This one, however, is too lazy to touch a pure woman because he's afraid of trouble. I'm really speechless. Mu Weining covered her mouth and chuckled, but then slowly said, I can feel that the reason why he doesn't want to touch a virgin woman is because he doesn't want to take responsibility. An irresponsible man? Tang Ying was surprised. It's not that he's an irresponsible man, said Mu Weining. It's because he doesn't want to take responsibility that he doesn't touch a pure woman. The smile on Tang Ying's face gradually faded away. She was silent for a while and then raised her thumbs up and praised, I admire him very much, even worship him. First, he's definitely a gentleman to be able to stay calm in the face of your temptation. Secondly, he knows that he won't take responsibility, so he doesn't touch a pure woman. Such a man is definitely a good man. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on her face. She pulled Mu Weining and circled her twice, clicking her tongue and sighing, I never thought that the first beauty of our imperial capital, Miss Mu, would actually have a crush on him. Don't deny it. Given your character, you would never test him if you're not tempted. Mu Weining's pretty face blushed. She rolled her eyes at Tang Ying and snappily said, don't talk nonsense. I just can't stand it, his attitude of wanting to drive me away. Think about it. A girl doesn't mind it, but he does mind being alone with a man and a woman in a room. I just want to see if he's really serious or just pretending to be serious. Don't find excuses, said Tang Ying disdainfully. How many boys have fawned on you since you were a child? How many people have done all kinds of absurd things just to get you to look at them? But you've always been arrogant and disinclined to pay attention to them. This Tan Xiu must have moved you. Mu Weining corrected her again, he didn't move me, but aroused my curiosity. Don't tell me you're not curious about him. After all, he's a young man with great ability, but he's so low-key that it makes people's hair stand on end. Tang Ying hesitated for a moment before she smilingly said, I'm indeed curious about him from you. However, he's fundamentally different from you. You're attracted to him, while I heard it from hearsay. Great Bell Mu, haven't you heard the saying that once a woman is curious about a man, it's the prelude to fall in love with him? Mu Weining opened her mouth. Ring, 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 Tang Ying's mobile rang from her bag at the side. Giving Mu Weining a teasing look, Tang Ying took out her mobile and smilingly said after connecting the call, Are you looking for me, fourth uncle? After a while, the smile on Tang Ying's face froze. Her beautiful eyes stared wide with incredulity in them. After listening to the other party's words, she involuntarily exclaimed, You mean, my second uncle's son has been found? And he's on the way to the imperial capital with Grandpa? Good, good, good. I'll go back to the ancestral residence and wait for you. After hanging up the phone, Tang Ying quickly put her mobile into her bag. She then looked at Mu Weining and said, Weining, I have something to do at home, so I gotta hurry back. I'll look for you after I'm done. Mu Weining raised her brows and curiously said, Big Sissing, if my memory serves me correctly, your second uncle became a vegetable 20 years ago, right? His biological son. An excited look flashed in Tang Ying's eyes as she nodded and said, That's right. My second uncle indeed had a woman before he became a vegetable, and that woman also gave birth to a child. 20 years ago, the elders of the Tang family had sent a lot of people to Star City to search for him, but unfortunately, they couldn't find him. Never did I expect that he would be found 20 years later. My grandma will be very excited if she knows about it. Mu Weining suddenly understood and said, Then you should leave quickly. I'll be here every day before the semester starts at the University of Shanghai. Come here if you have time. All right. All the immediate family members of the Tang family in the imperial capital received a call from Tang Yunqing. Dozens of family members then headed toward the Tang family's ancestral residence. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, it was a large courtyard house in the capital. Under the grapevine trellis, a silver-haired old lady was holding a pure white Persian cat drowsily. The tea on the stone table in front of her had already turned cold. She was Qin Changyue, Tang Guisheng's wife. Mom, how come you're sleeping here? Tang Yunpeng's wife, Kai Xinru, came to the courtyard with a bag of fresh vegetables and a housekeeper. Qin Changyue opened her eyes and saw Kai Xinru. She immediately sat up straight, waved her hand and said with a smile, It's all right. The weather is very hot now, so I won't catch a cold. I originally wanted to drink tea and listen to the radio, but somehow, the radio broke down. I almost fell asleep. Kai Xinru said with a smile, Mom, I told you to throw away that broken radio of Dad's. I'll buy you a new one. That won't do. Qin Changyue said with a smile. That radio is your dad's treasure. Although it has been repaired many times, it can be fixed every time. Kai Shinru said with a smile, all right, then. How about you change your clothes? There's a big event happening in our family tonight. There are fresh vegetables, meat, and seafood. Sister Wang and I just bought them from the market. I guarantee it's fresh and delicious. Qin Changyue was surprised. A big event? What kind of big event is worth cooking so many dishes? Grandma, you still don't know. Tang Wei rushed in from the courtyard's gate and said aloud. Qin Changyue looked surprised. She looked at Tang Wei and Tang, who came in and asked with a confused expression, what should I know? Tang Wei said, the grandson you've been missing for 20 years has been found. Grandpa is bringing him back. That's right, what's his name? Tan Xiao. That's right, that's his name. Qin Changyue stared blankly for a moment before her expression drastically changed. Although she was old, her body was still very strong. She directly stood up from the chair and hurriedly asked, what did you say? Yunda. Yunda's son. My grandson. You found him. Tang walked to Qin Changyue's side with a grin. She held her arm and said with a smile, Grandma, I really found him. I got a call from my dad, so I dragged my big brother here. An intense excitement appeared on Qin Changyue's face as her body trembled. Immediately after, she saw her eldest son, Tang Yunpeng, come in from the outside, followed by her grandson, Tang Ning. Yunpeng, you also know about it? Tang Yunpeng nodded and said, Mom, it seems that they have told you. As a matter of fact, I already knew about it when I accompanied my dad to see a doctor in Star City. The person who cured my dad is your grandson, Tan Xiao. I've received a call that my dad and Tang Min are bringing Tan Xiao and Tan Xiao's mother, Su Lingyun, to the imperial capital. Also, I've sent some people to the rehabilitation center to pick up second brother. Tears flowed out of Qin Changyue's eyes. Her lips trembled as she excitedly said, Good. It's good that you found him. It's good that you found him. Soon after, the Tang family's people arrived one after another. A lot of people have been accustomed to Quiet Night's outburst last month. It's very hard for them to adapt to the sudden change of writing 2 chapters a day. The reason why Quiet Night's outburst last month was entirely because the gifts and monthly votes were too much. Quiet Night had no choice but to outburst this month. Her gifts and monthly votes have shrunk severely this month. Moreover, Quiet Night is just an amateur writer, so it's impossible for her to stay up late for a long time. She really can't outburst this time. Chapter 258. Ring, 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 Tang Yunpeng's cell phone rang. He picked up the call and spoke a few words with the caller. Then, he put away his phone and said, Mom, second uncle, Tang Dong, and Tang Yen have arrived at the imperial capital airport. They will arrive in an hour at most. The smile on Qin Changyue's face turned thicker as she sighed, Your second uncle has been staying in Jingmen Island for 5 years. I didn't expect that he would come back specifically because of Xiu's matter. Now, all the people of our Tang family have finally arrived. At the side, Tang Guoshuo coldly snorted and said, Second brother has been hiding in Jingmen Island all these years, enjoying a leisurely life and leaving this mess in the imperial capital to me and big brother. This time, we must make him bleed and send a batch of experts to the imperial capital. Qin Changyue said with a smile, Third brother. In fact, you and your big brother both know that although second brother has gone to Jingmen Island, he has brought a lot of benefits to our Tang family all these years. You don't give him that face. Besides, the water in the imperial capital is too deep. In case our Tang family falls one day, Jingmen Island will be one of our escape routes. Tang Guoshuo was silent for a moment. Then, he forced a smile and said, Sister-in-law, I actually understand what you said. But thinking about second brother enjoying a happy life in Jingmen Island while me and big brother are busy in the imperial capital for our Tang family, I'm not in a good mood. Forget it, forget it. I won't grumble in front of so many juniors. Ha ha ha, hee hee, everyone in the Tang family couldn't help but laugh. Soon, Tang Guoxing arrived with Tang Dong, Tang Yen, and 4 other family members. Tang Guoxing's body was weak and sickly with a pale complexion. But when he was bickering with his third brother, Tang Guoshou, he looked particularly spirited. At the imperial capital's highway intersection, Tang Xiu's Land Rover Range Rover was also stopped. Because his license plate number was limited, the highway traffic police found that Tang Xiu had been driving for a long time, violating the traffic regulations. Can't you bend the rules? Sitting in the driver's seat, Tang Xiu looked at the traffic police outside the window and asked. The traffic police looked solemn. One of them shook his head and said, "Sorry, please get off." At this moment, Tang Min, who was sitting in the back seat, slowly opened the rear window. She handed over a certificate and lightly said, "Please make an exception. We have something important to discuss." The traffic policeman took the certificate. His expression drastically changed when he glanced at it. He immediately saluted Tang Min and respectfully said, "Greetings, Minister Tang. I didn't know you were in the car just now. I hope you can forgive me. Please." Saying that, the traffic policeman returned the ID to Tang Min. Tang Min nodded and then said to Tang Xiu, "Let's go." "I'm fine." Tang Xiu glanced at the traffic police outside the car window, then started the car and drove toward the 2 autos parked on the side of the road 100 meters ahead. In his heart, he secretly sighed, power is really a good thing. If it was an ordinary person, I'm afraid that not only would they have to accept a fine, but they would also have to deduct points on their driver's license. I'm afraid they might even be detained. Tang family ancestral residence. Tang Xiu stopped the car with a glint flashing in his eyes. Just as he entered the alley, he saw 4 armed guards guarding the place. Along the way, there were at least a dozen or so guards either in the open or in the dark. On both sides of the Tang family's ancestral residence's gate were 2 armed guards in military uniforms and white gloves. However, what attracted his attention was not those guards, but the dozens of Tang family members standing outside the courtyard's gate. The first one that caught his eyes was the silver-haired old lady who was surrounded by dozens of people. "Second sister-in-law, Tang Xiu, we've arrived," said Tang Min with a smile. Tang Xiu calmly nodded. He turned to look at his mother, who looked a bit nervous in the back seat, and said, "Let's get off, Mom." Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment before she nodded silently. Qin Changyue's eyes had been staring at the 3 cars. When she saw her husband, Tang Guosheng, she rushed forward and excitedly asked, "Where's my grandson? Where's my second daughter-in-law?" Tang Guosheng pointed to Tang Xiu and Su Lingyun, who got off the Land Rover with a smile on his face. Qin Changyue's eyes instantly locked on Tang Xiu. His footsteps were somewhat staggered as he moved forward. When she came before Tang Xiu, her trembling hands grabbed Tang Xiu's arm. Her face was full of excitement as tears gushed out of her eyes. She sobbed, You're my grandson. My biological grandson." Tang Xiu frowned. He somewhat rejected the old lady and the Tang family's people. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "Nominally, I'm your biological grandson." Qin Changyue hugged Tang Xiu tightly. Her tears flowed as she wailed. Tang Xiu didn't struggle. His expression was as tranquil as ever. Feeling Qin Changyue's tears wetting his clothes, he felt somewhat helpless inside. Familial love. He really felt it. That kind of agitation, that kind of excitement, that kind of joyful atmosphere, made him feel exceptionally complicated. After a long while, only then did Qin Changyue let go of Tang Xiu under Tang Min's persuasion. However, Tang Xiu's hand was still firmly held by her. Then, she looked at Su Lingyun and excitedly said, "Your little Yun, the one Yunda mentioned. You're my second daughter-in-law." Su Lingyun was very emotional. After being moved by the affection shown by the Tang family, she nodded and said, "I'm Su Lingyun, Yunda's daughter-in-law." Qin Changyue's other hand grabbed Su Lingyun and said with tears, "Child, our Tang family has let you down all these years. We let you and your mother wander outside. I'm sure you must have suffered a lot and suffered a lot. Don't worry. Since we've found you, our Tang family will absolutely not let you suffer even the slightest bit. If anyone dares to bully you in the future, just tell this old woman and I'll risk my life to fight them." Su Lingyun's eyes were also full of tears as she nodded repeatedly. She enjoyed the feeling of being recognized by her husband's family, enjoying the sudden familial atmosphere. Qin Changyue pulled Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu to the front of the Tang family's other members and said, "Let me introduce you. They are our Tang families." Tan Xiu interrupted Qin Changyue and lightly said, "There's no need to introduce them. I still have important things to deal with later, so take me to see Tang Yunda. If I can cure him, then it's best. If I can't cure him, then it's his bad fate." What? Except for Tang Guisheng and Tang Min, the tens of Tang family's members looked at each other in dismay, as if they couldn't believe their ears. What was this? Tan Xiu finally broke free from Qin Changyue's hand. He looked at Tang Guisheng and said, "You should still remember what I said before. Your Tang family is your Tang family, and we are us. The Tang family's threshold is high, and ordinary people like us can't reach it. So, you don't need to waste your time and feelings. Take me to see Tang Yunda. Otherwise, I and Mom will leave immediately." "Tan Xiu, how can you say that?" Tang Yunpeng angrily shouted. "Even if you think we're strangers, we're still your relatives. There are so many people here who are your elders. How can you?" Tan Xiu waved his hand to interrupt him and indifferently said, "Don't use your elders to pressure me. I was born and grew up in the Su family. If it weren't for my mother's insistence, I wouldn't even want to be surnamed Tang. So, don't talk to me about family. I'll ask you one last time, where is Tang Yunda?" "Shut up, Xiu." A bit of anger appeared on Su Lingyun's face as she scolded him in a deep voice. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he took a step back and said, "Mom, I respect your choice. But I hope you can also understand my choice. I don't have feelings for the Tang family, not now, and I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to have feelings for them in the future. Originally, I didn't want to come to the imperial capital, but I promised you and Grandma that I'll cure Tang Yunda, my father's illness." At this moment, the complexion of everyone in the Tang family turned unsightly. Tan Xiu didn't pay attention to them. He had been in the immortal world for thousands of years and only remembered his mother. Occasionally, he would think of his grandmother who loved him dearly. He didn't have any feelings, but his bloodline couldn't bind him. The reason why he could come to the imperial capital this time was entirely because of his mother. Su Lingyun fell into silence. She didn't know how to deal with the current situation as she had never seen such a big scene before. She had mixed feelings about her son refusing to recognize the Tang family, but she didn't want to force him. Tang Guisheng sighed inwardly and opened his mouth to break the deadlock. "Tan Xiu, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize us now. I know you're repulsed by your family, but I believe that even if you have a heart of stone, we can still melt your heart with what we'll do in the future. The descendants of the Tang family are the descendants of the Tang family. The thread of familial affection can never be cut off, nor can we give it up. Let's go. Your father should be sent here. I'll take you to see him myself." Tan Xiu nodded and reached out to grab Su Lingyun's hand. On the one hand, it gave her courage, and on the other hand, it also let the Tang family know that he could protect his mother now and didn't need them to do anything. A few minutes later, Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu were led by the Tang family to the tile-roofed house in the innermost part of the ancestral residence. When Su Lingyun saw Tang Yunda lying on the bed, big drops of tears fell from her eyes. "Yunda!" Grieving, she cried and threw herself to the edge of the bed. Her calloused hands tightly grabbed Tang Yunda's thin palm. It had been 20 years. It had been exactly 20 years. She had been thinking about it day and night, dreaming of seeing her husband again. Now, her dream had finally become a reality. It made her cry bitterly, telling her how she missed him all these years and venting all the grievances she had suffered all these years. At this moment, even if she were to die, she could still smile in the underworld. Standing at the side, Tan Xiu looked at the unconscious and thin Tang Yunda lying on the bed. He secretly sighed inside. He had never imagined that he would meet this person under such circumstances. After waiting quietly for more than 10 minutes, when his mother's mood stabilized a lot, he gently patted Su Lingyun's shoulder and said, "Let me see him, Mom. I'll do my best if I can cure him." "Good, good, good." An intense expectation burst out from Su Lingyun's eyes as she quickly retreated to the side. Today's second update, weekly asking for a recommendation vote __. Chapter 259. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Tan Xiu grabbed Tang Yunda's wrist, pressed his fingers on his pulse, and quietly felt his pulse. To his relief, although Tang Yunda's pulse was weak and his qi deficiency was serious, he could still maintain the operation of his body's functions. Moreover, at this rate, he could live for at least 8 to 10 years. Putting down his wrist, Tan Xiu helped him up and let his slightly stiff body sit up. Then, he pressed his fingers on Tang Yunda's head. With the integration of a trace of star force, Tan Xiu's spiritual sense also entered. The brain. It was the most mysterious part of the human body. When Tan Xiu became a supreme in the immortal world, he could only control and use 60% of the brain. He couldn't develop or use the other 40%. Tan Xiu checked and his face turned ugly because he found that Tang Yunda's brain nerves were severely atrophied and there were extravasated blood at the neuron nodes. Even the extravasated blood had solidified and showed signs of blocking the blood supply to the brain. In addition, the meridians in his brain had been cut off from the sea of consciousness, and there was a special gray substance blocking it. It was this gray substance that trapped his consciousness in the sea of consciousness and prevented him from perceiving everything outside. His consciousness was trapped. Tan Xiu had tasted this kind of feeling before. In the past, his wisp of spiritual sense went to the immortal world and appeared in someone else's body. His spiritual sense was trapped in the other person's body for more than 3 months. Finally, by chance, he broke free and became the owner of that body. The feeling of being trapped. Very depressing. Very painful. He couldn't sleep, and he couldn't die. He could only drift in the endless darkness. If he had a strong mind, he might be able to persist for a long time. But if he had a weak mind, he would probably go crazy and become a muddle-headed, thoughtless energy mass. After 4 or 5 minutes, Tan Xiu slowly retracted his palm and quickly retracted his released spiritual sense. He could still save Tang Yunda, but the process was very dangerous. This danger was not only for Tang Guosheng, but also for him. "How is it, Xiu?" Su Lingyun stood on the side and asked with a face full of expectation. Tan Xiu looked at his mother and sighed in his heart. Although his EQ wasn't high, he had a high IQ. How could he not feel his mother's anticipation? "Mom, is he really that important to you?" Tan Xiu was silent for more than 10 seconds before he slowly asked. Su Lingyun said firmly, "Very important. You and your son are very important to me." "All?" Tan Xiu savored this word in his heart and made a decision in his heart. He looked at Tang Guosheng and said in a deep voice, "I can't guarantee that I can cure him, but I'm willing to give it a try. Find us a secluded, quiet room where we won't be disturbed. It has to be a spacious place. Also, find me a silver needle." Tang Guosheng's eyes lit up and he replied in a deep voice, "I'll arrange it immediately." "Other than silver needles, what else do you need?" Tan Xiu said, "If your Tang family has the ability, you can go to the medicinal herb market or those medicinal herb shops to buy a lot of dragon fume grass. Remember, this herb is extremely rare and very expensive. Go buy it, buy as much as you can." Dragon fume grass. Tang Guosheng turned his head and shouted sternly, "You all heard it. Go out and find it. Be quick." Find all the things Tan Xiu needs within 3 hours. Understood. Dozens of people of the Tang family rushed outside. Tang Guosheng looked at his wife, who had been staring at Tan Xiu. He secretly sighed inside. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, Tan Xiu, I'm afraid it will take some time for our family to find the herbs you need. It's very late now, so let's have dinner first. Even if you're not hungry, your mother is. Tan Xiu looked at his mother, who was sitting on the edge of the bed and holding his hands. He nodded silently. Qin Changyue quickly said, I'll cook. I'll cook myself. After saying that, she turned around and left the room in a hurry. Tan Xiu looked at Qin Changyue's back as she left. A warm feeling rose inside his heart. He was repulsed by the Tang family, but Qin Changyue's expression when she saw him was in his eyes. Each of her expressions and each of her actions was filled with a strong cordiality, joy, and love. He was not a man with a heart of stone. Qin Changyue's words and the hurried back that she left touched his heart. Even in his heart, he had already silently recognized this grandmother whom he had just met for the first time. Let's go out. Tan Xiu retracted his gaze and looked at Tang Guosheng. In the hall of the central room, Tang Xiu sat on the sofa, leaned on it and closed his eyes. Since he had decided to treat Tang Guosheng, he had to conserve his energy and raise his spirit to the peak. Because he could only use his spiritual sense if he wanted to clean up the gray substance that blocked his sea of consciousness and meridians. If he was in an immortal sea of consciousness, he could do it in a flash. But the current him was too weak. He didn't even have the confidence that he could clean up the gray substance in one go, as well as remove the extravasated blood and nourish the atrophied nerves in his brain. The human brain was too complex, and he understood that he only had one chance. If he failed this time, it might cause other problems in Tang Yunda's brain, which would probably take his life. If his mother was willing to wait, he really wanted to wait until he became stronger to treat Tang Yunda. But he didn't want his mother to wait for him for 20 years, and then wait on him after seeing him. Nearly an hour later, Qin Changyue came to the hall wearing an apron. Her doting eyes fell on Tan Xiu's expression as she softly said, Grandson, the meal is ready. Call your mother to have a meal together. Tan Xiu opened his eyes and gently nodded to Qin Changyue. He got up and went to the next room. He found that his mother was holding Tang Yunda's hand, telling him how she missed him for the past 20 years. He sighed inwardly again as he pressed his mother's shoulder and said, Mom, eat something first. Eat and drink to your heart's content, so you can chat with him better. All right. Su Lingyun turned her head as a trace of a smile appeared on her face. In her opinion, it was time for the bitterness to end and the sweetness to begin. She had two big wishes for the past 20 years. One was for her son to smoothly enter a famous university, and the other was to find her husband who had been missing for 20 years. Although her husband was still unconscious at the moment, she was already satisfied. If her son could really cure her husband, she would have no complaints even if she had to die. Dinner. There were only 4 people at the dining table. They were Tang Guosheng, Qin Changyue, Tan Xiu, and Su Lingyun. The dining table was filled with fragrant dishes, and Qin Changyue was constantly putting food on the plate for the mother and son. The bright smile on her face made Tang Xiu have a good appetite as he ate 2 big bowls of rice and a lot of dishes. At this moment, Tan Xiu finally felt the Tang family's care for him and his son. He finally felt the atmosphere of familial love. With just a sentence from Tang Guosheng, dozens of Tang family's clansmen, including the Tang family's daughter-in-law, all left the ancestral house to look for the dragon fume grass. Since the chapter name is written 1 chapter and 2 chapters, there will naturally be a 3rd chapter. Although it's a bit late, the 3rd chapter is finally released. Thank you brothers and sisters for your strong support. I humbly beg for your recommendation votes and monthly votes. This family is very good. Tan Xiu put down his chopsticks after eating and secretly sighed in his heart. Grandpa, Grandma. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. Immediately, a young man dashed into the dining room. When he saw Tan Xiu, his complexion turned sluggish, and his eyes emitted an unconfident light. Tan Xiu was also dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the person who came was actually Chu Yi. He also didn't expect that Chu Yi would call Tang Guosheng and Qin Changyu as grandpa and grandma. So, he's my cousin. Tan Xiu, how come, it's you? Chu Yi looked at Tan Xiu with a silly expression and involuntarily exclaimed. A trace of a smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he got up and said, "Are you surprised?" Chu Yi said, "More than surprised, it's simply shocking. I really can't believe that you're my cousin. Don't talk about relatives with me. Have you eaten yet?" Tan Xiu lightly said. "If not, just eat some." Most of the smile on Chu Yi's face finally faded away. He rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "I've eaten. I've been in Tianjin City recently, so I didn't know about it. Fortunately, my mother gave me a call, so I rushed back from Tianjin City. That's right, I've sent people to look for the dragon fume grass you want. No matter how much they can find, I'll send them to you later." A curious look hung on Tang Guosheng's old face as he asked, "Do you know each other before?" Chu Yi grinned and said, "Grandpa, we know each other before, and our relationship is very close. Tan Xiu used to be my brother, but I didn't expect him to turn out to be my cousin. If Bai Tao, Zheng Yu, and the others knew about it, they would be so shocked that their eyes would pop out." A surprised look flashed in Tang Guosheng's eyes. He knew his grandson's character very well. He was smart, sensible, and steady, but his eyes were on top of his head. It was simply impossible for him to look at ordinary people. He couldn't understand how his grandson knew Tan Xiu. Qin Changyue, on the other hand, didn't have the mind to pay attention to this. She just smiled at Chu Yi's arrival. Her eyes were still unwilling to leave Tan Xiu. Tang Guosheng hesitated for a moment and asked again, "How do you know each other?" Chu Yi said with a smile, "Bai Tao and I have been to Star City before. The young master of the Long family, Long Zhengyu, is our friend. We met Tan Xiu through him." "Grandpa, you still don't know. My cousin's ability is too powerful. Even I, Bai Tao, and the others admire him greatly." Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment and then said, "I've arranged someone to investigate him. I only know that Tan Xiu does have a friend called Long Zhengyu. But I didn't expect that you also know him. He can even cure my asthma. His ability is indeed amazing." Chu Yi grinned and said, "Grandpa, he's not only amazing in the medical field. Chu Yi." Tan Xiu frowned and shouted with a deep voice. Although Tang Guosheng had sent someone to investigate Tan Xiu, but the time was too tight and the investigation information was not detailed. Therefore, upon hearing his grandson's words, he became more curious and said, "Chu Yi, tell me. I really want to know what kind of ability this grandson of mine has." Chapter 260. Chu Yi was stunned. Then, he gave Tan Xiu a pondering look, but still said, "He's very good in many aspects. His academic results are good, and he's the top scorer in Shuangqing province's science subjects. He's good at martial arts, and 8 out of 10 people are no match for him. His painting skills are amazing, and no one in the world can compare to him. In terms of business, he's so good that I admire him. He's simply a money-making machine." Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment before he asked the question he was most concerned about, "Connections?" "What connections?" Chu Yi said, "Grandpa, I'm afraid you also know what I did in Star City, right?" Tang Guosheng nodded and said, "I do know a little. Your mother told me about it." Chu Yi pointed at Tan Xiu and said, "Our big move in Star City is all because of Tan Xiu. Even the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals' big boss, Chen Zhizhong, was his apprentice. In short, in our eyes, he's an amazing person." Tang Guosheng was secretly shocked. Although he knew that his grandson was outstanding, he didn't expect him to be this outstanding. He had heard about the annihilation of the Zhang family in Star City, but he didn't expect that it was led by Tan Xiu. He also knew about the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical. It was a group company that mainly focused on medicinal herbs and also dabbled in the research and development of many drugs. It could be considered as a large group company in the country. As for the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals boss, Chen Zhizhong, he had also heard of him. He was a very bold and powerful person. Who would have thought that he was actually his grandson's disciple? The men of my Tang family are naturally powerful. A bright smile appeared on Tang Guisheng's face as he praised. Tan Xiu felt uncomfortable being stared at by Qin Changyue. He was too lazy to refute Tang Guisheng's words. Nominally, he was indeed his grandson. If he were to be scolded a few more times, he wouldn't lose much of his flesh. As long as his mother wasn't bullied by the Tang family, he didn't care. An hour later, many members of the Tang clan had already returned. What disappointed Tan Xiu was that even though they had used their connections, the amount of dragon fume grass they found was still pitifully small. Tan Xiu counted and found that there were only 12 of them. "Grandpa, I found 8 stalks of dragon fume grass." Outside the door, a light voice sounded. Tang Ying carried a black leather suitcase and rushed into the room. 8? The members of the Tang clan looked at each other in disbelief. They used their connections to look for their friends and inquired about the whereabouts of the dragon fume grass. They even announced that they would purchase it at a high price. In the end, it took so many people to buy 12, but Tang Ying alone bought 8. Tang Guisheng asked curiously, "Tang Ying, where did you find so many?" "In order to find the dragon fume grass, I posted it on my WeChat Moments. Coincidentally, a friend of mine had 8 of them, and he gave them all to me. However, my friends said that burning the dragon fume grass can raise one's spirits. No matter how tired one is, breathing in the fragrance of the dragon fume grass after burning can make one feel refreshed. However, it also has very strong side effects. If inhaled too much, it will cause dizziness and nausea. In severe cases, it can even cause coma." Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes as he looked at Tang Ying and asked, "Not many people know about the dragon fume grass. Your friend is quite powerful. Who is he?" Tang Ying looked at Tan Xiu and hesitated for a moment. She didn't answer Tan Xiu's question, but asked instead, "Before answering your question, can you answer mine first?" Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he said, "Ask away." "My friend who gave me the dragon fume grass said that she knows a strange person," said Tang Ying. "But it's undeniable that this strange person is very powerful. He has very high attainments in painting, and his landscape paintings are the best in the world. Once in Tianjin City, this strange person gave my friend a landscape painting for free and sold several pieces of calligraphy at a sky-high price. His name is Tan Xiu. I want to ask, do you have any relationship with this person?" "So you're talking about Mu Weining?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. "That's right, that painting was indeed given to her by me. I also sold several pieces of calligraphy." "Are you really the strange person that Mu Weining said?" Tang Ying was surprised. "It seems that my guess is correct. Cousin, we siblings must be closer in the future. Mu Weining and I are good sisters who have played together since childhood. We're real bosom friends. If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask. I guarantee that I can help you pursue her and get the beauty." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes. He was both angry and amused inside. He didn't feel like pursuing Mu Weining. He didn't have the mood to get the beauty. However, this cousin of hers was really interesting. In the blink of an eye, she had sold out her best friend who she was very close to. Qin Changyue, who was sitting at the side, listened to the conversation between Tan Xiu and Tang Ying. A surprised expression appeared on her old face as she said with a smile, "That child of the Mu family is good. He's barely enough to be a match for our family's Xiu." "Ying, you've already said it, but you must help your brother. To be honest, I like that child of the Mu family. Tang Ying laughed and said, Grandma, I'm afraid I don't need to help him. He already has some thoughts. This brother of mine is very powerful, very, very powerful. Mu Weining now worships him to the extreme. She can't wait to devote herself to him. That's good, that's good. A smile blossomed on Qin Chengyue's face. Sometimes, enthusiasm was also a kind of burden. Tan Xiu could feel the enthusiasm of the Tang family, as well as the cordiality expressed by them. Most of his indifference had also been worn away. He suddenly realized how correct Tang Guisheng's previous words were. Tan Xiu, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize us now. I know you're repulsed by these relatives. But I believe that even if you have a heart of stone, we can still melt your heart with what we'll do in the future. The descendants of the Tang family are the descendants of the Tang family. The thread of familial affection can't be cut off, nor can we give it up. These words. Tan Xiu was somewhat disdainful before. But at this moment, all sorts of feelings welled up inside his heart. His mood was particularly complicated. It couldn't be cut off, nor could it be sorted out. It was a different feeling in his heart. While waiting, the members of the Tang family were talking and laughing. Most of the content revolved around Tan Xiu and Su Lingyun. Those words of praise and the expression of familial affection made Tan Xiu finally accept them from the bottom of his heart. Finally. After all the members of the Tang family returned, Tang Guisheng put all the dragon fume grasses in front of Tan Xiu and said, There's a total of 36 dragon fume grasses here. I wonder if it's enough. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly said, It's already beyond my expectation to be able to find so many. It should be enough. However, no one is allowed to disturb me during my treatment. Even if the sky falls down, no one is allowed to disturb us. Tang Guisheng solemnly said, I'll immediately mobilize the guards and seal off the entire courtyard. Whoever dares to disturb you will be killed without question. Tan Xiu nodded. He took the dragon fume grasses and came to a spacious hall. He saw that there was nothing except a bed in the middle of the hall. Tang Yunpeng was still unconscious on the bed, while his mother, Su Lingyun, was sitting on the bedside and saying something in a low voice. Mom, you also need to go out. Tan Xiu said with a deep voice. Su Lingyun got up and said with concern, Xiu, you must go all out. He's your father, after all. Blood is thicker than water. Don't worry. Tan Xiu nodded. Su Lingyun fell into silence for a moment. She looked at Tang Guisheng and the other members of the Tang family standing outside the door. With a bit of expectation, she said, Xiu, can you promise me something before you treat your father? What is it? Tan Xiu was confused. I want to hear you call him Dad, Su Lingyun said with all seriousness. Tan Xiu fell into silence. The word was too unfamiliar to him. Xiu, Mom knows you don't want to, but I beg you to call him Dad for me, Su Lingyun said bitterly. He suddenly disappeared that year because he suffered a heavy injury and was in a coma. I believe he will never abandon us if he's fine. Your father is not in the wrong. It's Mom who is in the wrong. If I had the courage to bring you to the Tang family to find him, I believe you could have watched your father live since you were a child. Tan Xiu slowly turned his head and his eyes fell on the thin Tang Yunda. He knew that what his mother said was right. If he hadn't suddenly turned into a vegetable, he wouldn't have abandoned his mother and him. He was not in the wrong. But it was hard for him to say that word. Xiu. The expectation on Su Lingyun's face turned more intense. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He looked at Tang Yunda on the bed and called out, Dad, in a flash. A bright smile bloomed on Su Lingyun's face. Her eyes were filled with excitement and tears. She grabbed Tang Yunda's hand and said with a trembling voice, Yunda, did you hear that? Your son is calling you Dad. You must be strong for me and our son. You must wake up. At the door. Tang Yunda and the other members of the Tang family also showed a satisfied smile. Since Tan Xiu could shout out such words, it meant that he and the Tang family were inseparable. Tan Xiu took a deep breath. He reached out to press Su Lingyun's shoulder and said, "Mom, I need treatment. If I can wake him up, wait for him to wake up and tell him." All right. Su Lingyun released Tang Yunda and quickly walked toward the door. "Tell Chu Yi to come in. I need his help in the treatment," said Tan Xiu. Chu Yi squeezed his way through the crowd. He rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "Cousin, what do you want me to do?" "Cousin." Tan Xiu heard him call him again, but he didn't correct his address. Instead, he calmly said, "After I start the treatment, if it doesn't end in 6 hours, come in and light a dragon fume grass. Remember, come in every half an hour after you light the first one and leave after you light it." "Can't I stay here?" asked Chu Yi. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "The fragrance of the dragon fume grass is harmful to you. It will make you fall unconscious if you smell it too much." "So powerful?" Although Chu Yi heard Tang Ying talking about it, he didn't expect it to be so powerful. He could doubt Tang Ying, but he would never doubt Tan Xiu's words. "Don't worry. I'll do it according to your arrangement." Tan Xiu nodded and let all the members of the Tang family go out. After closing the door, he took off his shoes and stepped on the bed. He then helped Tang Yunda to sit cross-legged in front of him. Chapter 261. Tan Xiu knew very well that treating Tang Yunda required a lot of mental energy. In particular, the removal of the gray substance between his sea of consciousness and meridians, as well as the mass of extravasated blood, completely required the coordination of star force and spiritual sense. Moreover, he needed to concentrate all the time. The input of star force and spiritual sense also had great requirements. Success. Tang Yunda woke up and survived. Failure. Tang Yunda died and vanished into thin air. Tan Xiu didn't want to let his mother down. After all, she had suffered for 20 years. Now, the good days she had been looking forward to finally came. Even if it was dangerous, Tan Xiu must go all out. A silver needle. In an instant, it pierced into the Qianding acupoint in the middle of Tang Yunda's head. Tan Xiu pinched the silver needle and carefully transferred a trace of star force into the acupoint. His spiritual sense quickly followed the star force and drilled into Tang Yunda's brain. The extravasated blood must be removed first. After that, Tang Yunda's brain nerves must be nourished and repaired. Only then could he slowly remove the gray substance. Under the control of Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, the silk-like star force slowly pierced into the coagulated extravasated blood, pierced and retracted, repeating the cycle. Every time the star force and spiritual sense were retracted, a trace of extravasated blood would be brought out. Time flew by. Tan Xiu's spiritual force had been concentrated to the limit, bringing out the extravasated blood again and again. It took a full hour for the coagulated extravasated blood to be cleared by 1/5. Subsequently, Tan Xiu retracted his star force and spiritual sense and quickly pulled out the silver needle on the top of Tang Yunda's head. His spiritual sense once again wrapped around the extravasated blood and pulled it out little by little. Then, he pierced the silver needle into the Qianding acupoint and cleaned up the extravasated blood bit by bit according to the previous method. However, the speed was increased later, but it still took him 4 hours to clean up the extravasated blood in Tang Yunda's brain. The repair of Tang Yunda's brain nerves was still slow. The star force had a strong nourishing and repairing function, but Tan Xiu only repaired 60% of the atrophied brain nerves in 2 hours. Almost there. Thick beads of sweat appeared on Tan Xiu's forehead, but he didn't seem to notice it. At this time, the waves of mental fatigue brought him great trouble. However, he knew that the more critical the moment, the more he couldn't relax. Due to the removal of the extravasated blood and the repair of the nerves in his brain, if Tang Guosheng's consciousness could not be released as soon as possible, the problems that had formed over the past 20 years would cause a huge burden to his brain once they suddenly changed. Suddenly. A wisp of fragrance wafted into Tan Xiu's nostrils, and his spirit was immediately shaken. Knowing that it was Tang Yunda who ignited the dragon fume grass, he took advantage of the time when his spirit was slowly recovering to slowly remove the gray substance blocking Tang Yunda's sea of consciousness and meridians. This gray substance was even more troublesome to clean up than the extravasated blood. It had a viscous nature to begin with, making it even more strenuous to extract, and the amount of mental power consumed would also multiply. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. The amount of gray matter that was cleaned up was less than 1/20th. The door was gently pushed open as Chu Yi tiptoed into the room. After his eyes fell on Tan Xiu, his complexion slightly stagnated, and a bit of a ghast expression could be seen in his eyes. Although he had seen Tan Xiu pinching the silver needle and piercing it into Tang Guisheng's head to treat him, his complexion didn't look good, but it wasn't like now. His face was covered with sweat, his complexion was pale, his lips were purple, and his brows were deeply wrinkled. After a moment of silence, he ignited another dragon fume grass and then left the room. Half an hour later, when Chu Yi came back, he found that not only was Tan Xiu's face drenched in sweat, but his complexion was also as pale as a sheet of paper. His body was also slightly trembling. His heart was lifted up in an instant, and a worried look appeared in his eyes. When he ignited another dragon fume grass and left the room, the Tang family's clansmen who were waiting outside didn't go to rest despite their tired faces. The moment Chu Yi came out and closed the door, Tang Guisheng asked in a deep voice, "How is it?" Chu Yi hesitated for a moment and bitterly said, "I don't know." "But..." Tang Guisheng's complexion slightly changed as he asked, "But what?" Chu Yi said, "Tan Xiu's condition isn't good. His face is full of sweat, his complexion is pale, and his body is also trembling. He looks very uncomfortable." In an instant, dozens of Tang family's clansmen looked worried. Su Lingyun hurriedly asked, "Xiu, he's not in danger, right?" "I don't know." Chu Yi shook his head. Time fleeted by. 4 hours later. When Chu Yi ignited the 11th dragon fume grass, Tan Xiu's slightly hoarse voice was transmitted to his ears, "Ignite one every 10 minutes." Chu Yi didn't answer, but he firmly remembered Tan Xiu's words. At this time, his worry about Tan Xiu had also risen to the extreme. Because, although Tan Xiu's face was covered with sweat, there was not a trace of blood on his face. Blue veins protruded on his forehead, and his lips were no longer purple, but had dried up and cracked, and even had bloodstains oozing out. His body trembled twice as much as before, as if he would faint at any time. He hesitated for a moment. He quietly took out his mobile phone and took a photo of Tan Xiu and Tang Yunda, and then quietly left the room. "It's not over yet?" Tang Yunda asked with a worried face. Chu Yi shook his head and handed over the mobile phone, saying, "Grandpa, this is the photo I just took. Please take a look." Tang Yunda took the mobile phone. When he saw Tan Xiu's appearance in the photo, his body trembled and disbelief burst out from his eyes. Wretched. Miserable. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be in such a miserable state in order to treat his son's illness. Especially when he saw the blood overflowing from Tan Xiu's cracked lips, which made him feel a bit distressed. "Let me see." Su Lingyun quickly grabbed the mobile phone. When she saw Tan Xiu's appearance in the photo, she felt as if her heart was stabbed by a knife. 2 lines of tears couldn't help but roll down. She wanted to rush inside and stop her son from being treated, for fear of losing him. However, a trace of reason told her that she couldn't be impulsive. In case she disturbed her son, not only would she not be able to save her husband, but it would also bring a blow to her son. The photo in the mobile phone was constantly passed to the other members of the Tang family. When they saw it, all of them fell into silence. At first, they recognized Tan Xiu entirely because Tan Xiu had the blood of the Tang family flowing in his veins. But when it came to feelings, they really didn't feel much. But at this moment, they didn't think so. Tan Xiu asked them to find the dragon fume grass in advance. Perhaps he already knew that such a situation would occur, but he still treated Tang Yunda without any hesitation. This showed that he was a descendant of the Tang family who valued affection and righteousness. My grandson. After seeing the photo, Qin Changyue's tears couldn't stop flowing. She felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. She finally saw her grandson, whom she had been missing for 20 years, but she didn't expect that he would become like this. In the room, Tan Xiao had cleared 4/5 of the gray matter in Tang Yunda's mind. And the consumption of his spiritual force had also reached the limit. If he continued to persist, it would cause great damage to his spiritual force. However, the tenacity that had been tempered for thousands of years still made him persevere. Either he didn't do it, or he did it well. Tan Xiao's teeth bit the tip of his tongue, and the sting made him once again raise his spirit. However, the more time passed, the slower the gray matter's speed became. When Tan Xiao treated Tang Yunda for 27 hours, only 1/10 of the gray matter remained. At this moment, Tan Xiao found that Tang Yunda's consciousness had broken through his sea of consciousness and regained the ability to control his body. Don't move. A hoarse and weak voice came out from Tan Xiao's mouth. At this moment, Tang Yunda felt like he was dreaming. He didn't know how much time had passed in the outside world. He felt that he was trapped in the endless darkness for a long time. It was so long that he forgot the time and even almost forgot who he was. All these years, it was an obsession that supported him, not letting his consciousness collapse and turn into a mass of energy. A voice. He heard it. It was a very young voice. The moment he opened his eyes, he could clearly see Tang Xiao sitting cross-legged in front of him, looking particularly miserable. As his eyes turned, he also saw the scene in the room. Who are you? Tang Yunda's throat squirmed a few times, and a weak voice sounded. Shut up. Tan Xiao's hoarse voice sounded again. Tang Yunda was silent. Although he didn't know Tan Xiao, he also realized that Tan Xiao was treating him. It was all thanks to the young man in front of him that he was able to wake up from the endless darkness. With that gratitude, he remained silent and motionless. 32nd hour. The moment Tan Xiao cleared the gray matter, he finally couldn't suppress his boiling blood and spurted out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his spiritual force and star power were completely exhausted. His vision turned black, and his body fell to the side. In an instant, he completely passed out. Tang Guixing's chest was dyed red by Tan Xiao's blood, but he was more worried about Tan Xiao's safety. After all, the person in front of him was saving him. He wanted to help Tan Xiao, but his stiff body made his movements extremely slow. The sense of weakness that came from the soul made his vision turn black. Finally, when his hands touched Tan Xiao's arm, his vision turned black and he passed out. Outside the door, many members of the Tang family finally couldn't hold on anymore. Some went to other places to rest, while others directly sat on the bench and fell asleep. Tang Guixing, who had slept for a few hours, had been staring at the door with his weather-beaten eyes. On the side, Su Lingyun hadn't closed her eyes for more than 30 hours. Her eyes were red and she looked a bit embarrassed, but she still persisted, waited, and prayed. Grandpa, should I go in and have a look again? Chu Yi squatted next to Tang Guixing and waited anxiously. He finally couldn't help but ask. Tang Guixing was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, Remember, don't affect my grandson. All right. Chu Yi nodded. He stood up and rubbed his numb legs, and then walked toward the door step by step. When he gently pushed the door open and saw the situation inside, his complexion suddenly changed. He turned his head and hurriedly said, Grandpa, it's bad. Today, the second chapter will be presented on time. If the recommendation votes for the day exceed 1,000 or the monthly votes exceed 100, the Silent Night Society will release the third chapter in the early morning. Please support me, brothers and sisters. _. Chapter 262. Tang Guixing's complexion greatly changed. He quickly got up from the chair and sprinted to the door, asking, "What happened?" Chu Yi pointed inside and said with a trembling voice, "The treatment seems to be over." Tan Xiao, Tang Guosheng looked at the direction of Chu Yi's finger. When he saw the comatose Tang Yunda and Tan Xiao on the big bed, his heart instantly twitched a few times as he rushed into the room. Su Lingyun's heart also jumped to her throat at this moment as she also rushed inside. Dozens of other Tang family members who were awake also rushed into the room. "He's in a coma." Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiao's appearance. Despite his firm will, crystal tears still emerged in his eyes. Tan Xiao's miserable appearance made him extremely distressed. Xiao, what happened to you?" Su Lingyun threw herself to the bed and cried bitterly. The Tang family members looked at Tan Xiao's comatose appearance and also felt a bit worried. They didn't expect that Tan Xiao's treatment of Tang Yunda would turn into such a state. However, thinking about the more than 30 hours of treatment, they admired Tan Xiao from the bottom of their hearts. Tang Guosheng suddenly turned his head and shouted sternly, "Call Master Chen, quickly." Instantly, 2 members of the Tang family ran outside. Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment as he looked at Chu Yi and asked, "Do you have Chen Zhizhong's phone number?" Chu Yi quickly said, "Yes." Tang Guosheng said, "Call his number. I'll talk to him personally." Star City. Chen Zhizhong was accompanying several clients to have a meal. Recently, his medicinal herbs business had been booming, which made him very happy every day. What made him the happiest was that his cultivation was progressing very fast. Ring, 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 his cell phone rang. Chen Zhizhong grabbed it and saw that it was a call from Chu Yi. He immediately said to his several business partners with a smile, "You drink first, I'll take a call." After saying that, he stood up, picked up the call and said with a smile, "Chu Yi, what's up?" "I'm Tang Guosheng from the Tang family in the imperial capital." "Tang family? Tang Guosheng?" Chen Zhizhong stared blankly for a moment before his expression drastically changed. He strode out of the box and respectfully said, "Hello, old Tang. I'm Chen Zhizhong. Do you have any instructions for me?" "I heard that you're Tan Xiao's disciple," asked Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. "Yes," Chen Zhizhong answered. "If possible, I hope you can rush to the imperial capital immediately," said Tang Guosheng. "My grandson is now in a coma because he treated the patient. His physical condition doesn't look good. You're in the medicine business, I think I might need your help later." "Your grandson?" Chen Zhizhong was confused. What did Tang Guosheng's grandson have to do with his master? Could it be that master asked the old man to look for him? "Tan Xiao is my grandson, my biological grandson," said Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. "What?" Chen Zhizhong's pupils constricted as he cried out involuntarily. His face was filled with disbelief. His heartbeat quickened as well. Tan Xiao is Tang Guosheng's grandson. Oh my God! That was to say, Tan Xiao is also a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. "Is there a problem?" asked Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. Chen Zhizhong sobered up from the shock and quickly said, "I'll rush to the imperial capital immediately. My master's matter is more important than my own." After hanging up the phone, Chen Zhizhong strode back to the box. He looked at his business partners and said, "Everyone, I'm really sorry. I have some personal matters to attend to, so I'm in a hurry to go to the imperial capital. It's a matter of life and death. You drink first, and I'll treat you to a meal to apologize after I'm done with my business." Upon hearing it, those people nodded one after another. On the way to the airport, Chen Zhizhong called Long Zhengyu and Ouyang Lulu. He knew that the two of them were Tan Xiao's best friends. As for Kang Xia, Chen Zhizhong didn't tell her. He felt that she should know about Tan Xiao's situation. At the Long family in Star City, Long Zhengyu was accompanying his family to have lunch. After receiving Chen Zhizhong's call, he was still worried about Tan Xiao even though he was shocked. He quickly informed his parents and rushed to the airport. Jingmen Island. Ouyang Lulu was a guest in the everlasting feast hall. She was eating pastries in the pavilion while looking at Gu Xiaoxue, who was playing the zither in front of her. Ring, 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 her mobile phone rang, interrupting Gu Xiaoxue's zither music. Ouyang Lulu furrowed her brows and looked unhappy. She gave Gu Xiaoxue an apologetic look and took out her mobile phone. After seeing that it was Chen Zhizhong who called her, the unhappy expression on her face immediately disappeared. After picking up the call, she said with a smile, "Uncle Chen, are you looking for me?" After a while, Ouyang Lulu hung up the phone in a daze. "What's wrong?" Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. "You suddenly picked up a phone call. How come you look like you've lost your soul?" Ouyang Lulu shuddered and suddenly jumped up from the stone bench. She hurriedly shouted, "It's Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu is injured and seems to be in a coma. I must go to the imperial capital immediately." Gu Xiaoxue stared blankly for a moment before she suddenly got up. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of Ouyang Lulu. She anxiously asked, "What did you say?" "Grand Master is injured. He's in a coma. Where is he now?" Only then did Ouyang Lulu suddenly recall that Tan Xiu was Gu Xiaoxue's Grand Master. Without hesitation, she quickly said, "He's in the imperial capital. Chen Zhizhong just told me that Tan Xiu fell into a coma while trying to save someone." "That's right, he's also the grandson of the Tang family's Tang Guosheng in the imperial capital." Tang Guosheng. Gu Xiaoxue was somewhat familiar with this name, but she didn't think about it. What she was most concerned about now was her Grand Master's safety. She immediately said, "Lulu, let's go to the imperial capital together." At the imperial capital, Tan Xiu's coma brought a huge shock to the Tang family. Dozens of Tang family's members used their connections to invite a lot of medical experts. But after those medical experts examined Tan Xiu, they all shook their heads. Even the divine physician Chen Tianhe could only figure out that Tan Xiu fell into a coma due to overexertion of his mental and physical strength. "Grandmaster Chen, you must save my grandson. My Tang family is willing to pay any price." Tang Guosheng suppressed his grief as he looked at the gray-robed old man in front of him and said. Chen Tianhe forced a smile and said, "I know what you're thinking, old Tang. But there's nothing I can do about his situation. His aura is too weak, and his vitality is obviously fading away. If it goes on like this, he'll die in at most 1 day. Is there no other way?" Tang Guosheng hurriedly asked. Chen Tianhe was silent for a moment and then slowly said, "I know a golden needle acupuncture method that can stimulate his acupoints and arouse a trace of vitality in him. But this method can only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. It can only let him live for 2 more days at most. If we can't find a solution after 3 days, I'm afraid." Just as Tang Guosheng was about to speak, rapid footsteps came from outside the door. Tang Yunpeng strode into the room and shouted, "Dad, Yunda woke up." "What?" Tang Guosheng's body trembled, but his bitter heart couldn't give birth to a trace of joy. Although his son had woken up, he had to pay the price of his grandson's life, a price he couldn't afford. He turned his head to look at Su Lingyun who had fainted. He felt that he had lost too much money to this mother and son pair. "Grandmaster Chen, 2 more days is 2 more days. My Tang family will find a way to cure my grandson no matter what price we have to pay." "I'm sorry to trouble you." Chen Tianhe gently nodded. He took out a silver needle and quickly performed acupuncture on Tan Xiu. Sure enough. After his acupuncture treatment, the loss of Tan Xiu's vitality slowed down. Inside another room, more than a dozen members of the Tang family looked at Tang Yunda who had woken up with excitement. Qin Changyue was in tears and didn't want to let go of Tang Yunda's hand. "I'm really fine, Mom. Don't cry. I'm awake now." Tang Yunda squeezed out a smile and slightly moved his body. He found that his body was much better than when he had just woken up. Tang Min's eyes were red as she said in a low voice, "Second brother, it's good that you're awake. It's good that you're awake." At this time, Tang Yunda already knew that he had been in a coma for 20 years. Although he felt that it was a miracle that he had woken up, he was still full of happiness when he felt the excitement of his relatives. Suddenly, he remembered the young man who saved him and quickly asked, "That's right. After I woke up, I found that the young man who saved me vomited blood and fainted. How is he now?" For a moment, the Tang family members looked at each other in dismay, but they didn't know what to say. Qin Changyue wailed for a while before wiping his tears and sobbing, "Son, don't you know that the person who saved you is your own son? He's not good now. Very, very bad." "What? Me, my son." Tang Yunda recalled that his wife was pregnant before he fainted. But he never dreamed that the young man he saw after he woke up turned out to be his own son. "Mom, how is he?" Tang Yunda's voice was somewhat trembling. Tang Min answered for her mother, "The family has invited a lot of famous doctors, but they are at a loss for his situation. They said that he has overused his mental energy and will be in danger. Take me to see him." Tang Yunda struggled to stand up. 2 minutes later, with the help of the Tang family members, Tang Yunda came to the room where Tan Xiu was in a coma. When he learned about his son's situation from his father, Tang Guisheng, and the divine doctor of national medicine, Qin Tianhe, he wailed. As for the unconscious Su Lingyun, she was hugged in his arms and tears couldn't stop flowing down. At the imperial capital, all the big families, the members of the rich and powerful families, and even those who stood at the top of the pyramid of power in the country, had received the news that the Tang family's grandson, who had been lost for 20 years, had been found. Just when they were secretly surprised that the Tang family had added another member, another heavy news came. The Tang family's descendant was officially a divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. He had saved his father who had been in a coma for 20 years, but he himself fell into a coma and his life was in danger. For a moment, the top people in power in the country contacted Tang Guisheng one after another to inquire about Tan Xiu's situation and to comfort him. Many of the top doctors in the country also received the invitation from the Tang family and rushed to the imperial capital to visit the Tang family. "Sorry, I met the condition to add more chapters yesterday. But Quiet Night got drunk while entertaining the two great gods who came from afar. So, I hereby make up for it. There are still 2 chapters left today. Brothers and sisters, please continue to recommend your votes _. Chapter 263. At the Tang family in the imperial capital. Tang Guisheng was full of expectation as he welcomed one famous doctor after another. But he also sent them away with a disappointed face. That included the divine physician of the Tang family, Qin Tianhe. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Chen Zhizhong and Long Zhengyu looked at the anxious faces of the Tang family's people and secretly sighed inwardly. After they arrived, they finally understood the cause and effect of the matter. They also understood that Tan Xiu only recently knew that he was a descendant of the Tang family. At this time, Su Lingyun had woken up from her coma. She tightly snuggled up to Tang Yunda with an anxious look on her face. In fact, she deeply regretted letting her son treat her husband. If her son didn't treat her husband, they wouldn't have encountered such danger. Although her husband was unconscious, he was at least still alive. Continue to spread the news. If anyone can cure my grandson, my Tang family is willing to give 1 billion yuan as a reward. Tang Guisheng pinched the cigarette butt and shouted in a deep voice. The Tang family's members in the courtyard looked dignified. No one dared to disobey Tang Guisheng's order. Even in their hearts, they would still choose Tan Xiu's life over Tan Xiu's life. At the entrance of the front courtyard, Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu's car was intercepted. For soldiers in military uniforms and armed with firearms looked particularly indifferent. We're Tan Xiu's friends. Get out of my way. Ouyang Lulu stood in front of the 4 soldiers and angrily shouted. I'm sorry. No one is allowed to enter without the senior's order. One of the soldiers shook his head coldly. Ouyang Lulu said, then quickly go inside and report. Tell them that we're Tan Xiu's friends and we're going to visit him. A cold glint flashed in Gu Xiaoxue's eyes. She didn't want to waste time. Even if the people in front of her were soldiers, she still didn't care. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of the two soldiers. Her palm chopped down. The two soldiers only felt a blur before they directly fainted. Bastard! The other two soldiers reacted very quickly. When they saw Gu Xiaoxue make a move, they immediately pulled the bolt of their guns. Just as they were about to raise their guns, Gu Xiaoxue had already struck their temples with lightning speed, knocking them out. Enemy attack. In the alley, two soldiers in military uniform had their complexion greatly changed. The moment they rushed toward Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu, they loaded their guns and aimed at them. However, they were clearly more than 10 meters away from the two of them, but they felt their vision blur, and they were directly knocked out. However, their roars still alerted many nearby guards. In just a few breaths, more than 10 guards rushed over. Get lost! With a flip of Gu Xiaoxue's hand, a flexible sword appeared in her hand. Her footsteps moved erratically, and her speed was so fast that it was impossible for the naked eye to capture it. The flexible sword slashed through the wrists of the guards like a spirit snake. The moment their wrists were cut, Gu Xiaoxue snatched the guns in their hands and threw them into the distance. Bang, 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 a dozen gunshots rang out. In the inner court, Tang Guosheng's expression changed drastically, and the others in the courtyard also revealed shocked expressions. They didn't expect that someone would dare to cause trouble in the Tang family's home. Even the guards outside had already pulled out their guns. Yunpeng, go out and take a look. Tang Guosheng's face was gloomy as he shouted sternly. Tang Yunpeng replied and dashed outside. When he came to the front yard, he saw two guards in military uniforms being knocked into the yard from outside and heavily smashed onto the hard concrete ground. I'm Tang Yunpeng. Who are you? Gu Xiaoxue coldly snorted and her figure instantly disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Tang Yunpeng. Her slender white fingers were already clutching Tang Yunpeng's throat as she coldly said, I don't care who you are. Take me to see my Grand Master immediately. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy. Tang Yunpeng's eyes were filled with horror as his throat was clutched. A chill rose from the bottom of his heart. It was because this girl was 20 meters away from him, but she appeared in front of him in a flash. It was just like a divine skill in the fairy tales, teleportation. You, who's your Grand Master? Gu Xiaoxue furrowed her brows and coldly said, Tan Xiu. Tang Yunpeng felt that the strength of her hand had reduced a lot and quickly said, Tan Xiu is your Grand Master? I'll take you to see him immediately. Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment. She released Tang Yunpeng and then said to Ouyang Lulu, who just ran in from the door, let's go. They can't hurt you. All right. It was the first time for Ouyang Lulu to see Gu Xiaoxue's moves. Her lightning-like speed and ruthlessness shocked her. She knew that Gu Xiaoxue knew martial arts, but she didn't expect her to be so powerful. She was simply like a martial arts expert in TV dramas. Bang, 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 a burst of rapid footsteps was heard as dozens of soldiers in camouflage uniforms rushed into the courtyard. Their black muzzles were aimed at Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu. Tang Yunpeng took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice, don't shoot. An officer ran to Tang Yunpeng and saluted, Senior, it's our fault for failing to protect them. They broke into the courtyard. Please punish us, Senior. Tang Yunpeng had seen how terrifying Gu Xiaoxue was. Even though dozens of soldiers were pointing their muzzles at her, he still didn't feel safe. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, you go out first and continue to guard. You too, come with me. Quickly, Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu followed Tang Yunpeng to the backyard. Ouyang Lulu. Why are you here? After seeing Ouyang Lulu, Long Zhengyu immediately looked surprised and greeted her. With a bit of anxiety on her face, Ouyang Lulu quickly asked, Long Zhengyu, where's Tan Xiu? I heard he's injured. Is he alright? How is he now? Where is he? Looking at Ouyang Lulu's anxious expression, Long Zhengyu turned to glance at Tang Guosheng and bitterly said, he's still in a coma. His life is still in danger. Tang Guosheng frowned upon seeing the two girls coming in. He looked at Tang Guosheng and asked in a deep voice, what happened outside just now? A bitter smile was revealed on Tang Yinpeng's face. He glanced at the indifferent Gu Xiaoxue and said, it's them who broke in and injured more than a dozen guards. What? In an instant, Tang Guosheng thought that there was something wrong with his ears. The dozens of people in the courtyard also looked at each other in dismay, disbelief written all over their faces. The two of them were outrageously beautiful girls. Broke in. And even injured more than a dozen guards. Are you kidding me? Looking at their soft and weak appearance, how could they possibly injure more than a dozen guards? It must be noted that those guards were armed with guns. Furthermore, the series of gunshots just now was absolutely not to scare people. Gu Xiaoxue's indifferent eyes swept over the others and coldly said, tell me, where's my Grand Master? Grand Master? The dozens of people of the Tang family's complexion slightly changed and the surprise in their eyes turned more intense. Qin Zhizhong's expression moved and quickly said, who are you? I'm Qin Zhizhong, Tan Xiu's disciple. Gu Xiaoxue's brows pricked. A respectful expression immediately appeared on her face as she cupped her fists and said, Gu Xiaoxue greets martial uncle. Who is your master? Qin Zhizhong was confused. Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, if Grand Master didn't tell you, it's not convenient for me to say. Where's Grand Master? I need to see his situation. Qin Zhizhong turned to look at Tang Guosheng. Although Tang Guosheng didn't understand why Qin Zhizhong worshipped Tan Xiu as his master, nor did he understand how Gu Xiaoxue became his grandson's grand disciple, he still said with a deep voice, Tan Xiu is in the side hall. I'll take you to see him. Everyone else is waiting outside. I want to go too, said Ouyang Lulu quickly. Tang Guosheng looked at her deeply and then nodded. After a while, Tang Guosheng took Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu to the side hall. When the two women saw the unconscious Tan Xiu lying on the bed, Ouyang Lulu quickly threw herself to the bed and shouted, wake up, Tan Xiu. Don't shout. It's useless. Tang Guosheng shook his head and said while suppressing the grief inside. Gu Xiaoxue grabbed Tan Xiu's wrist and felt his pulse for half a minute. Then, she said with an ugly expression, his mental force has been overconsumed, his spiritual force has been completely consumed, and his vitality is also fading. Tang Guosheng's eyes lit up and quickly asked, Miss, do you have medical skills? Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment and then said, all of you go out and don't let anyone disturb me. Remember, no one is allowed to enter the door before I take the initiative to go out. Upon hearing it, Tang Guosheng quickly said, all right. We'll go out at once. Sister Shui, can you cure Tan Xiu? Asked Ouyang Lulu hurriedly. It should be no problem, said Gu Xiaoxue calmly. Ouyang Lulu immediately looked pleasantly surprised and quickly left with Tang Guosheng. Outside the door, Tang Guosheng shouted in a deep voice, everyone, listen up. No one is allowed to go in without my order. The little girl inside is treating my grandson. She can treat him. Su Lingyun suddenly sat up and asked with a nervous expression. I don't know, but she should be fine. Tang Guosheng shook his head. Su Lingyun clenched her fists tightly as tears rolled down her face again. She prayed inwardly, praying to God for protection. If her son could wake up and recover, even if she had to die, she would be willing to do so. Suddenly, her eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu and probingly asked, Miss, what's your relationship with my son? Son. Ouyang Lulu instantly understood Su Lingyun's identity. A trace of blush appeared on her face as she hurriedly bowed and said, hello, Auntie. I'm I'm Tan Xiu's friend. We have a good relationship. Su Lingyun nodded and gave her a grateful look, saying, "Thank you for coming here. It's really my son's luck to have friends like you." She didn't understand, but the other people around looked at Ouyang Lulu with a somewhat strange expression. They had clearly seen Ouyang Lulu's girlish attitude a moment ago. Today's second chapter is here. Yesterday's recommendation votes have met the requirement for additional chapters. I don't know if it can meet the requirement again today. If so, Quiet Night will have 4 chapters today. Brothers and sisters, do your best. Both monthly and recommendation votes are fine. _. Chapter 264. In the side room, Gu Xiaoxue took off her shoes and sat cross-legged behind Tan Xiu. She pressed her hands on his back and continuously injected true essence into Tan Xiu's body. What's going on? Gu Xiaoxue's input of true essence only lasted for half a minute before she immediately stopped. To her disbelief, Tan Xiu's body actually rejected her true essence. She originally wanted to use true essence to heal Tan Xiu, but not only did it not work, but it also added fuel to the fire, making Tan Xiu's body even worse. Could it be that Grandmaster didn't cultivate true essence? But if it's not true essence, how can I save him? Use the blood sacrifice method? Gu Xiaoxue's expression kept changing, and her eyes flickered with a look of hesitation. The blood sacrifice method could indeed save Tan Xiu, but it would be extremely harmful to her. Not only would her lifespan be reduced, but her cultivation speed would also be affected. After a dozen seconds of thinking, Gu Xiaoxue finally made up her mind to use the blood sacrifice method to save Tan Xiu. After all, Tan Xiu was her grandmaster, the person that her master cared about the most. Heaven and earth are black and yellow, devour blood and take life. Gu Xiaoxue bit her fingertip and made dozens of finger seals, forcing a drop of blood out of her body and pressing it between Tan Xiu's eyebrows. Between heaven and earth, a mysterious aura merged into the drop of blood that Gu Xiaoxue had forced out and then merged into Tan Xiu's eyebrows. Then, her body floated up and instantly appeared above Tan Xiu's head. As she stood upside down in the air, she pressed her palm on the top of Tan Xiu's head and a wave of Khanate Qi was transferred into Tan Xiu's body. After doing all this, her face was a little pale. After her figure appeared in front of Tan Xiu, she directly sat cross-legged and closed her eyes to adjust her breath. Now, she had surpassed the Golden Core realm and was just short of breaking through to the nascent soul realm. However, forcing out a drop of life essence and using the blood sacrifice method caused her to suffer a great loss. At least a few years of her lifespan had been reduced. At this moment, as Tan Xiu's life force drained away, his heart suddenly erupted with a powerful life force. That drop of Gu Xiaoxue's lifeblood essence contained an enormous amount of energy. This energy was more powerful than all of Tan Xiu's cultivation. Bang! Bang! As his heartbeat grew stronger and stronger, the power of the stars and the sun that came from the distant sky started drifting over from all directions and fusing into his body. Tan Xiu's astral power gradually gathered and recovered a little bit. The mysterious aura was quickly stripped from the lifeblood essence and merged into Tan Xiu's sea of consciousness. It was also at this moment that Tan Xiu, whose consciousness had sunk into darkness, finally woke up from the chaos. When his consciousness instantly spread throughout his entire body, he discovered the drop of lifeblood essence, and his expression immediately changed. He knew his body's condition very well. And the drop of blood essence that came from the outside made him understand that someone was using the blood sacrifice technique to save his life. He did not have the time to think about who had saved him. His consciousness calmed down and he began to silently practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. When Tan Xiu's eyelashes trembled and he opened his eyes, he saw Gu Xiaoxue sitting cross-legged in front of him, holding her chin and looking at him without blinking. Could it be that she had saved him? Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. A hint of a smile appeared on his still slightly pale face. He blinked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked in a somewhat hoarse voice, "Did you use the blood sacrifice technique to save me?" Gu Xiaoxue's expression slightly froze when she saw Tan Xiu open his eyes. When she saw Tan Xiu blink and heard Tan Xiu's words, she immediately cried out in pleasant surprise, "Grand Master, you're finally awake? I thought it would take a long time for you to wake up. I used the blood sacrifice art because I discovered that Grand Master's body rejected the true essence I cultivated. It really was her." Tan Xiu secretly sighed inwardly and smilingly said, "The cultivation technique I'm currently practicing is a bit special, so it repels the true yuan of others. Therefore, it's impossible to use true yuan to heal me. Xiaoxue, I really want to thank you this time. If you didn't use the blood sacrifice technique, I'm afraid I would have died." Gu Xiaoxue raised her small face and smilingly said, "It's what I should do, Grand Master." Tan Xiu nodded and looked around. He found that he was still in the side room where Tang Guosheng was being treated. But there was no trace of Tang Guosheng at this moment. The smile on his face faded a lot and he asked in a low voice, "Where are we now?" "The Tang family in the imperial capital," answered Gu Xiaoxue. "How did you find us?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "The Tang family has been spreading the news and promised countless doctors in the outside world that they would pay any price if anyone could cure you," said Gu Xiaoxue. "The Qin family's patriarch contacted Marshal Uncle Qin, who then called Ouyang Lulu. She happened to be a guest in our everlasting feast hall, so I knew about it." "The Tang family," Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and immediately relaxed. "Any price?" Such a promise was too heavy. Despite the fact that Tan Xiu was still a bit repulsed by the Tang family, he had to admit that the Tang family did regard him as a true family member. Now, he finally believed that what Tang Guosheng said in the past was true. They had indeed looked for him and his mother. There's no point in persisting pointlessly. Since the Tang family really regards me and mother as family, then let nature take its course. The time is too short. We'll see how it goes in the future. Those titles are meaningless. The most important thing is to see how we get along in the future. I can't make things difficult for mother." Thoughts flashed inside Tan Xiu's mind. He floated up and got out of bed. After putting on his shoes, he looked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked, "How did you and Ouyang Lulu come here?" "It's Ouyang Lulu's private jet," answered Gu Xiaoxue. "What about Ouyang Lulu?" asked Tan Xiu again. "Where is she now?" Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, "I don't know. I haven't left this side room for 3 days. But she's very concerned about you. She should still be in the Tang family." Tan Xiu nodded. When he opened the door and walked out with Gu Xiaoxue, the dozens of Tang family members gathered outside looked ecstatic. Su Lingyun even threw herself into Tan Xiu's arms and cried tears of joy. "I'm fine, Mom." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and gently patted her back to comfort her. At the side, sitting in a wheelchair, Tang Yunda's movements were still a bit inconvenient. His thin face was full of excitement as he stared at Tan Xiu. No one had a more complicated mood than him. It was as though a bottle of 5 flavors had been knocked over. Sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty feelings flooded his heart at the same time. However, what filled Tang Yunda's heart the most was guilt. Being born without raising one's father. It would have been fine if it was only this. But his son almost lost his life to save him. This made him, who was once unyielding and unyielding, unable to utter a single sound. Tang Guosheng, who stood next to Tang Yunda, raised his hand and gently patted his shoulder. His eyes moved from Tan Xiu to Gu Xiaoxue and said with gratitude, "Miss Gu, I really want to thank you. You saved my grandson's life. No matter what wish you have, as long as my Tang family can achieve it, you will absolutely be satisfied. Saving my Grand Master is my duty. I don't have any wish, and I don't need the Tang family to repay me," said Gu Xiaoxue calmly. Tan Xiu gently pushed Su Lingyun away and wiped the tears on her face. His eyes then shifted to Tang Guisheng and Tang Yunda before finally landing on Qin Changyue, whose face was full of excitement and tears. Then, he calmly said, "Grandma, I'm hungry. Tell someone to prepare something for me." "Grandma?" Qin Changyue was stunned. An incredulous expression appeared on her tearful face, but in an instant, it was replaced by ecstasy. She felt like she was dreaming. Because Tan Xiu, who had always rejected the Tang family and was unwilling to admit that he was his grandson, had unexpectedly opened his mouth to call her grandma. "Great, great, great. Grandma. Grandma will personally cook for you." The other members of the Tang family also looked pleasantly surprised. Tan Xiu's address meant that he finally recognized the Tang family and their clansmen. As Qin Changyue left, Tan Xiu looked at Tang Yunda again and calmly said, "Dad, since you've woken up, let's go back to Star City after the meal. My mom has been waiting for you for 20 years. I hope you won't let her down again." Tang Yunda was touched by Tan Xiu's address. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He heavily nodded and seriously said, "Rest assured, I'll use the rest of my life to compensate you and your son." Half an hour later, Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue had eaten and drunk to their heart's content. Qin Changyue sat next to Tan Xiu as she watched Tan Xiu eat most of the food she cooked. A sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. The moment Tan Xiu put down his chopsticks, she quickly asked, "Grandson, are you full?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I'm full." Qin Changyue nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "If you're willing to eat Grandma's cooking, Grandma will cook for you every day." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Grandma, I have an important matter to deal with. I need to go to Jingmen Island, and then I'll go abroad. Wait for me to come back. If the University of Shanghai hasn't started yet, I'll come over." "You're going abroad?" Qin Changyue was surprised. Tan Xiu nodded and didn't explain further. He turned to look at Tang Guisheng and said, "Grandpa, we'll go first. Can you go a bit later?" Tang Guisheng asked. "Is there something else?" Tan Xiu asked. Tang Guisheng said, "Since you've come back, I'm going to let you worship the ancestors tomorrow and leave the names of you and your son in the family tree. If you have something to do, you can leave tomorrow after the worship." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "All right. I'll have to trouble you to arrange a place to stay. Xiaoxue and Lulu as well." "No problem." Tang Guisheng looked happy and immediately replied. At night, Tan Xiu, Gu Xiaoxue, Ouyang Lulu, and even Qin Zhizhong and Long Zhengyu all stayed at the Tang family. Tang Yunpeng personally booked a hall in a nearby upscale restaurant and arranged 8 tables to celebrate Tang Yunda's awakening and Tan Xiu's safety. Chapter 265. The next day, Tang Guisheng personally presided over the ceremony and ordered Tan Xiu and Su Lingyun to kowtow and worship their ancestors. Their names were also recorded in the Tang family's genealogy. Shortly after, Tan Xiu let his parents take Ouyang Lulu's private plane and directly rushed to Star City. Qin Zhizhong and Gu Xiaoxue also passed by. As for Tan Xiu and Long Zhengyu, they drove his Land Rover SUV back to Star City from the highway. When passing through Qinghe County, Tan Xiu returned to the Su family village to see his grandmother. He also picked up Su Ben and Su Quan before returning to Star City. South Gate Town. Tang Yunda's face was full of shock when he was pushed into the Wang villa. Although he had learned from his wife that his son, Tan Xiu, had made a lot of money and was now living in a big villa, he didn't expect that the villa would be so luxurious. Grandma. Gu Yin was sitting on the sofa in the living room, listening to music and resting. When she saw Su Lingyun coming into the living room, a pleasantly surprised look immediately appeared on her face. She quickly removed her headphones and ran over. Kang Xia was sitting on the opposite sofa, having a rare rest. She was holding a financial magazine and looked surprised when she heard Gu Yin's words. She knew Gu Yin's life experience and knew that aside from Tan Xiu's mother, there was no one else she could call as grandma. As far as the eye could see, Kang Xia found that there were a lot of people entering the living room. A smile appeared on Su Lingyun's face. She loosened the hand that was pushing the wheelchair and directly hugged Gu Yin. Then, she said with a smile, "Yin baby, have you been good lately?" "Yin is very strange, grandma." "I just miss you very much," said Gu Yin with a smile. Su Lingyun stroked Gu Yin's black hair and put her on the floor. She then pointed to Tang Yunda on the wheelchair and said, "Yin, he's your master's father. Call him grandpa." Gu Yin stared blankly and curiously looked at Tang Yunda. Then, she obediently said, "Hello, grandpa. I'm Gu Yin. You can call me Yin." Tang Yunda already knew about Gu Yin, so he said with a smile, "Hello, Yin. From now on, we are a family." Gu Yin raised her head and looked at Su Lingyun. Su Lingyun nodded to her and then looked at Kang Xia. This was the first time she saw Kang Xia, so she hesitated for a moment and then said, "You are." Kang Xia recalled the relationship between her and Tan Xiu, and her heart was somewhat perturbed. However, at this moment, she also saw Ouyang Lulu and Gu Xiaoxue following behind them. A complicated feeling rose in her heart. She knew that Ouyang Lulu liked Tan Xiu, but she didn't expect that other than Ouyang Lulu, there would be another fairy-like girl. After a slight hesitation, she quickly put away her complicated emotions and said with a smile, "Hello, Auntie and Uncle. I'm Kang Xia." Su Lingyun quickly caught Kang Xia's hand and smilingly said, "Ah, so you're Kang Xia. I've often heard Xiu and Yin mention you, but I've never had the chance to meet you. She was so pretty and sensible. My son said that you've been busy with the business affairs. It's really hard on you." Kang Xia could feel Su Lingyun's amiable and approachable attitude. The smile on her face turned bigger as she said, "Auntie, it's what I should do." Su Lingyun shook her head and said, "The business affairs are between you and Xiu. But we've been away from Star City for so many days, and it seems that you've been taking care of Yin. In this regard, I should thank you." Kang Xia modestly said a few words. Subsequently, Su Lingyun busily introduced Ouyang Lulu and Gu Xiaoxue to Kang Xia. When she learned that Kang Xia knew Ouyang Lulu before, she no longer said anything. Originally, Kang Xia saw that Su Lingyun had come back and was ready to leave. But Su Lingyun knew that Kang Xia had a rest day today, so she pulled her and didn't let her leave. Her intimate attitude made it hard for Kang Xia to refuse. In the afternoon, Tan Xiu rushed back to Southgate Town. He found that except for Chen Zhizhong, everyone else was at home. He chatted with them for a while and then called Kang Xia to the bedroom on the second floor. "Boss, I'm not happy." As Kang Xia closed the bedroom door, a bit of dissatisfaction was revealed on her stunning face. Even her small mouth pouted like a young girl. "What's wrong?" Tan Xiu asked with a puzzled expression. "I already know that you treated Uncle Tang. You almost lost your life. Ouyang Lulu also got the news, but I didn't know about it," Kang Xia said with dissatisfaction. Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile, "It was too sudden. You had a lot of things to do in Star City, so they didn't tell you." "I'm fine now, don't worry." Kang Xia snorted and then walked to Tan Xiu's side. She pulled his arm and said, "You're not allowed to encounter danger again. Even if you don't think for yourself, you must think for me, for our magnificent Tang Corporation. You're the big boss. What should I do if something happens to you?" Tan Xiu and Kang Xia already had a close relationship, so he didn't reject Kang Xia's intimate action. Instead, he patted her arm and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I'll pay attention to my safety later. I called you here because I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Kang Xia asked curiously. Tan Xiu said, "I'm going to Jingmen Island and then go abroad directly from there. If everything goes well, I'll be back in 10 days to half a month. If there are any special circumstances, I'm afraid I can only come back before the University of Shanghai opens on September 1st. I'll leave the management of Star City to you. Kang Xia knew that Tan Xiu was going to the private island he bought, so she nodded and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of the company well. If Auntie and Uncle need anything, I'll come to help." Tan Xiu nodded and asked about the thing he wanted to know the most, how's the winery? Scarblade Chung should have brewed the wine, right? Upon hearing it, Kang Xia's eyes immediately lit up. With a happy expression, she said, "It's indeed brewed. The taste is even better than the previous one. That wine is absolutely the best in the world. Also, I've thought about the name of the wine. It's called Immortal Dew. As for the price of each bottle, I've discussed it with the company's leadership and decided to set it at 18,888 yuan per bottle. That's a good price." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Our winery has just been developed and the scale is too small, so the wine we can produce will be limited. Therefore, we'll take the high-end route. Also, our company's products will be the first to enter the market and make a profit, so we can set it as the wine. As for the marketing and sales, I'll leave it to you." Upon hearing it, Kang Xia said with a smile, "September 15th this year. Shanghai will have a triennial wine tasting conference. At that time, I'll personally bring our Immortal Dew to participate. At that time, we'll definitely amaze the world with a brilliant feat. Also, I'm going to set the sale date of the Immortal Dew on September 18th. As Tan Xiu walked to the cloakroom, he said, "You have the final say in this decision." Kang Xia was very happy after receiving Tan Xiu's affirmation. Following him to the cloakroom, she saw that Tan Xiu was preparing a change of clothes and quickly asked, "Boss, when will you go to Jingmen Island?" "I'll leave after dinner, and I'll take Yin with me," said Tan Xiu. "Ah, that's right, I brought Su Ben and Su Quan back from my hometown in Qinghe County. Arrange their work. Tell them to be security guards in the winery. They grew up with me, so I know their characters. Su Ben is honest, and diligent. Train him to be the security captain. Su Quan is smart and quick-witted. Let him stay in the security team first. After some time, transfer him to the company's sales department. Let him start from the bottom. If his performance is good, promote him appropriately." "All right." Kang Xia nodded. Tan Xiu quickly picked a few pairs of underwear and a jacket. After stuffing them into the suitcase, he also took a few pairs of shoes and socks and put them inside before zipping it up. He then turned to look at Kang Xia and said, "There's nothing else. You can go now. I want to take a bath and change my clothes." A smile hung on the corner of Kang Xia's mouth. She moved to the cloakroom's door and asked, "Do you want me to help you scrub your back?" With a strange expression, Tan Xiu said, "You want to take a bath together with me? No problem. Buy some clothes and send them to me. Later, when you want to take a bath together, just come and find me." "Bah, who wants to take a bath together with you? You think too highly of yourself." Kang Xia blushed and quickly turned to leave. As a matter of fact, she was still somewhat tempted to do that kind of thing with Tan Xiu between a man and a woman. That kind of explosive taste left her with an endless aftertaste. However, she couldn't do it at this time because Tan Xiu's parents, Ouyang Lulu and Gu Xiaoxua, were still downstairs. Even if she was thick-skinned, it was impossible for her to agree. At night, after Tan Xiu and the others had dinner at home, he, Gu Yin, Ouyang Lulu, and Gu Xiaoxua drove to Star City Airport and took Ouyang Lulu's private jet to Jingmen Island. He counted the days. It had been a month or two since he came to Jingmen Island, and he hadn't seen Gu Yan, for a month or two. Sitting on the comfortable sofa of the plane, Tan Xiu looked at the dark scene outside the window. Suddenly, an impatient feeling arose inside his heart. He was anxious to see Gu Yan, and accompany her to talk. At 9 p.m. the plane landed at Jingmen Island Airport. At the airport's exit, Tan Xiu halted his pace. He looked at Ouyang Lulu and said, "Lulu, thank you for coming all the way to the imperial capital for my matter. I won't say too many words of gratitude. I'll treat you to dinner and karaoke after I come back from abroad." Ouyang Lulu hesitated and suddenly asked, "Tan Xiu, what's your relationship with Kang Xia?" "It's the relationship between the boss and the employee," Tan Xiu said calmly. Although Ouyang Lulu didn't believe Tan Xiu's words, she still nodded. Ever since she saw Kang Xia at Tan Xiu's home in Southgate Town, Ouyang Lulu's mood had been quite bad. She had been looking for an opportunity to ask about it, but she had been holding it in until now. Finally, she asked. After separating, the Everlasting Feast Hall's car had rushed over to pick them up. When Tan Xiu, Gu Yin, and Gu Xiaoxue sat in the car together, a strange expression flashed in Gu Xiaoxue's eyes as she said, "Grand Master, Lulu likes you." The 4th chapter is over. I'm weekly asking for the recommendation votes and monthly votes. Quiet Night is exhausted. Chapter 266. Hugging Gu Yin, Tan Xiu gently stroked her soft hair and calmly said, "There are a lot of women who like me. Don't you think that outstanding men have the trait of attracting bees and butterflies?" Pfft, Gu Xiaoxue was amused. She suddenly found that this Grand Master, who was always unfathomable, unexpectedly had a humorous side. Tan Xiu looked outside the window and slowly asked, "What has Ji Qimei been doing recently?" "I asked her to find the herbs to refine the spirit congealing pill." "How's the progress?" A smile appeared on the corner of Gu Xiaoxue's mouth as she said, "All the herbs have been gathered. Elder Ji is currently refining the pill. If nothing unexpected happens, she should have refined the spirit congealing pill by now." Tan Xiu's expression moved as he nodded and said, "The spirit congealing pill has a great effect on me, Yan Er, and Ji Qimei. Even if you take a spirit congealing pill, you will have a good harvest. Also, I've drawn up a list of herbs with a total of 3,650 herbs. I'll give it to you later. When the time comes, you need to use all the resources to find these herbs. Buy as many as you can find. I've already told Chen Zhizhong that he's mainly in the herb business. You can also contact him after you get the list. Grand Master, there are so many herbs. Are they all used for alchemy?" Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. Tan Xiu nodded and said, 3,650 herbs can be used to refine 7 kinds of pills. Each of them has a magical effect on us. Among them, there's a pill called the Nascent Soul Pill. If you take it, you can break your golden core and break through to the Nascent Soul stage. Nascent Soul stage. Gu Xiaoxue's eyes lit up. She instantly made up her mind to find all the herbs needed to refine the Nascent Soul Pill. She would strive to refine the Nascent Soul Pill as soon as possible and break through to the Nascent Soul stage. "That's right, have the people I arranged arrived?" Tan Xiu suddenly asked. "You mean Wolfhead and the others?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "It seems that they have arrived." "Are they in the Everlasting Feast Hall now?" "They arrived before I went to the imperial capital. I've arranged for them to stay and wait for your arrival," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Grand Master, I don't understand. Our Everlasting Feast Hall has so many experts, why do you still want to recruit retired soldiers like Wolfhead?" Tan Xiu calmly said, "Do we have a lot of people? Don't forget who my enemies are when I return to the immortal world one day." Although those supremes in the celestial world couldn't be bothered to deliberately cultivate trusted subordinates, how many millions of experts did they have by their side? Who doesn't have an army of immortals guarding their territory? Gu Xiaoxue held her breath and immediately understood Tan Xiu's thoughts. Indeed. Those lofty paragons of the immortal world stood at the pinnacle of trillions of immortals. It would be strange if they didn't have a large number of subordinates. Tan Xiu sighed and said, "I once thought that as long as I was strong enough, no one could shake me. Until I was. From then on, I understood the principle that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Although his own strength was important, it was also necessary to have a group of loyal and powerful subordinates by his side. If I had a group of loyal and devoted subordinates to protect me, even if those enemies wanted to deal with me, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy. I understand your thoughts, Grand Master, said Gu Xiaoxue with a solemn expression. The Everlasting Feast Hall has only cultivated 20 children with good aptitudes in the last decade. It seems that this number is far from enough. 20. Tan Xiu was surprised. Children? I've been leaving the Everlasting Feast Hall for a period of time every year for the last decade to gain experience outside, said Gu Xiaoxue. At the same time, I've been looking for some children with good aptitudes. All of them are street children, and those I've picked out are very suitable for cultivation. They're very young. The oldest one I adopted is only 6 years old, and the youngest is perhaps only 1 or 2 years old. Did you teach them a cultivation technique? Tan Xiu frowned. It's not a cultivation technique, just a basic cultivation technique for the qi refining stage. Gu Xiaoxue shook her head. On the one hand, it can help them change their physique, and on the other hand, it can let them accumulate experience from an early age. When they reach the peak of the qi refining stage in the future and pass the test, I'll teach them a more advanced cultivation technique. As a matter of fact, this is also my master's idea. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said, I'll teach those experts trained by the Everlasting Feast Hall a cultivation technique after a short rest. Draw up a list and give it to me. Remember, I don't need them to have heaven-defying aptitudes, nor do I need them to be powerful. What I care about is their character and loyalty. All right. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and replied. The big man from the Everlasting Feast Hall who was driving was shocked inwardly upon hearing the conversation between Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue. In his eyes, there was an intense light of surprise. They were all experts who were brought up by Gu Yan, and trained through cruel means. They had absolute loyalty to Gu Yan, Even if Gu Yan, gave the order, they would immediately pull out their swords and commit suicide or charge into the enemy lines. Similarly, they also knew that Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoxue were not ordinary people. They walked on a path full of thorns, yet they could become extremely powerful. Especially him. He could clearly hear the conversation between Tan Xiu and Gu Yan, What shocked him the most was the place Tan Xiu mentioned, the immortal world. The immortal world supreme. An army of hundreds of millions of immortals. These names that he had never thought of before made his blood boil. He wished he could immediately become a super powerhouse and go to the immortal world. He wanted to see the magnificent scene of the immortal world and compete with those powerhouses there. Bring those 20 children to me when we arrive at the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Tan Xiu. I'm going to pick 10 of them to take with me. Where are you taking them, Grand Master? Asked Gu Xiaoxue in surprise. The private island I bought is going to be turned into a holy land for cultivation, said Tan Xiu lightly. That place will be our base camp in the future. That's right, I remember there are 2 people, Mo On and Mo. When I leave, let them come with me as well. I'll leave it to them to manage it later. Understood. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. At the Everlasting Feast Hall. When the car entered the parking lot, Tan Xiu came out while holding Gu Yin's hand. He then looked at Gu Xiaoxue who came out from another door and slowly said, Let's go see her now. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and gestured to several security guards who came to greet them. Then, she led Tan Xiu and Gu Yin to the beach. Master, the sea. Although Gu Yin was more mature than her peers, she was still a child after all. Seeing the sparkling surface of the sea under the starry sky, they immediately revealed expressions of jubilation. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and reached out to pick her up. Then, he lifted his legs and jumped to the boat docked on the shore. As Gu Xiaoxue floated up, the boat moved without any wind and slowly sailed toward the sea. Open it, said Tan Xiu. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and pinched her fingers into a lotus seal. The seawater in front of her separated, revealing a passage leading to the seabed. Wow, it's amazing. Gu Yin's eyes widened as she exclaimed. You can easily do it later if you practice hard. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Gu Yin firmly nodded. A solemn expression appeared on her small face as she solemnly said, I'll definitely practice hard and become as powerful as Martial Niece Xiaoxue, Master. Martial Niece? Gu Xiaoxue's mouth twitched a few times as a helpless expression appeared on her face. According to seniority, she was indeed Gu Yin's martial niece. However, Gu Yin's age made her very depressed. After the Azure Sea universe was opened, Tan Xiu's group of 3 came to the seabed. Looking at the exquisite pagoda that exuded a faint golden light, Tan Xiu said, Open it. All right. Gu Xiaoxue quickly made a hand seal and shouted in a deep voice. Heaven and earth, only I am supreme. As the golden light bloomed, the pagoda's door slowly opened. Tan Xiu handed Gu Yin to Gu Xiaoxue and said, Her cultivation is limited and can't withstand the chill inside. Use your true essence to protect her. 2 minutes later. Tan Xiu came to the ice bed on the 7th floor and looked at the still unconscious Gu Yin. His expression softened as he gently lifted her up and silently hugged her in his arms. Seeing Gu Yin again, Tan Xiu's heart was calm. Whether it was the previous experience of his grandmother being beaten or the Tang family acknowledging their ancestors, all the good and bad emotions vanished at this moment. Speaking of feelings, Tan Xiu had received a lot of disciples, but the one he had the most affection for was Gu Yin. In his heart, Gu Yin was like his own daughter. It was he who raised Gu Yin, personally taught her cultivation techniques, and guided her to embark on the path of cultivation. In the past, he missed his mother, so he transferred his mother's care to Gu Yin. Yin, Master has come to see you again. Tan Xiu stroked Gu Yin's beautiful hair and said softly. On the side. Gu Yin curiously looked at Gu Yin. She was well behaved and found that her master cared about Gu Yin very much. Although there was a sense of loss in her heart, she still stood beside Gu Yin and waited quietly. She had already guessed that the woman in her master's arms was her senior sister. At this time, Gu Xiaoxue was full of gratification. She could feel Tan Xiu's love for her master. In the past, she thought that her master had suffered so much for Grand Master, which was really not worth it. But now, she finally understood. She understood that Grand Master and her master were both sentimental people. Their words and deeds were in accordance with the most sincere intentions in their hearts. Master, wake up quickly. Shui has found Grand Master. After seeing him, you will be very happy. Gu Xiaoxue clenched her fists and secretly prayed in her heart. Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at Gu Yin, saying, She is your senior sister, Gu Yin. She has experienced a lot of hardships and suffered a lot for Master. Now she is seriously injured and has been in a coma at the bottom of the sea. In the future, you must respect your senior sister as you respect me. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.